pleasure to be where I am today.
Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
ESPN Sunday Night Baseball presented by Nextel. Tonight on a beautiful night in the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Area. We're at the Network Associates Coliseum. It's the Boston Red Sox and the Oakland Athletics in the rubber match of a 3-game series. Hello, everyone. I'm John Miller, and welcome to ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. And the Athletics, the team that won the West last year, is going to be everybody's preseason favorite to do it again this year. Well, they are in a predicament. They're trying to catch up. They got a big deficit with the Seattle Mariners. They got a little help today. Toronto beat Seattle. Nonetheless, the A's are 11.5 out. They're trying to gain ground by winning series. They beat the Blue Jays earlier this week, but tonight, if they're going to beat the Red Sox, they're going to have to do it by beating Pedro Martinez. My partner, Joe Morgan, talked to A's MVP and league MVP Jason Giambi about that before the game.
Jason, you're one of the best hitters in the league, and you're going to face the best pitcher in the league today. Do you change your approach against someone like Pedro Martinez as compared to another pitcher?
Well, I think what I did first, I went out and drank a lot last night. I feel I got a better chance now. No, just kidding. No, you know what you do? This is the part of the game that I love. You know, getting up to the plate, facing the best, you know, strapping it on, because you know he's going to come after you. And you know, I mean, it's all about, if you get a hit against him, you know, nothing feels better. 1 for 4 is a great day against this guy.
And that's what makes Jason Giambi a great hitter, John. The mental approach. You have to have mental toughness to face a guy like Pedro. But the one thing he said there, he knows Pedro is going to come after him, and he likes that.
All right. So you've got the Cy Young winner up against the league MVP from a year ago. With the Red Sox, they've got a couple of guys who might have visions of that MVP this year. Carl Everett, of course, who's a strong hitter in that lineup, and Manny Ramirez, the former Cleveland Indian. And Manny's come over here. He's leading the league in hitting. He's got 34 RBIs already in only 30 games. The guy is just something else.
Well, he's amazing, but he's always been one of the best hitters in the league as far as I'm concerned. He adjusts to what the pitcher does to him probably as good as anyone else in the league. And this Boston ballpark is built for him. Just wait till they get Garciaparra back in front of him. He may drive in 200 runs this year.
All right, so the Red Sox without Garciaparra, nonetheless, right up there at the top of their division, but they need a win to keep pace with the Blue Jays who won earlier. Pedro Martinez to try and give them this series here in Oakland.
Shining star, no matter who you are. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
Hi. ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Nextel, how business gets done. And in part by Wendy's Cheddar Lovers Bacon Cheeseburger. Cheddar makes it better.
Coming up on Sunday Night Baseball, the Cy Young winner versus the MVP, Giambi, 3 for his 11 in his career against Pedro. And Pedro will also be describing the burning sensation he feels when he releases his blazing fastball. And Joe Morgan will compare Pedro to the dominant pitchers of the 60s, such as Sandy Koufax. And in our batter's notebook, RBI machine Manny Ramirez explains the mechanics of his sweet swing. All that much more on Sunday Night Baseball tonight from Oakland. And a big crowd is gathering here, Joe. The Athletics, who do not draw all that well, nonetheless, pretty big crowd gathering here on a Sunday afternoon in California. Here is the Nextel starting lineup for Jimmy Williams' Boston Red Sox. Trot Nixon at the top, then Jose Offerman, and then you get to the power guys.
Well, Carl Everett is one of the better RBI men in the league, and Manny Ramirez may be the best RBI man in the league. And just remember, Garciaparra fits in there someplace, so this could be an awesome lineup when he gets back.
Garciaparra, who was at the White House today, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later on. But right now, we're ready to play ball, and there is Cory Lidle, who was acquired from the Tampa Bay Devil Rays as part of that huge 3-team trade. The A's ended up sending away Ben Grieve and A.J. Hinch, among others. As you see Lidle and his pitch grips.
Well, when I talked to Rick Peterson, the pitching coach today, he said the key pitch will be the forkball and how well he controls it. He doesn't throw a slider, as you can see, but he throws a fastball, curveball, and the two-seamer and the four-seamer. But again, the forkball is going to be the pitch of decision. He called it a splitter, so we'll call it a splitter.
And there is a called strike to Trot Nixon. So we are underway. Trot Nixon, left-handed hitter all the way, and that's a little bit too far inside. Nixon is off to a slow start, although he's gotten his average up here lately to 259. 2 home runs, 11 runs batted in. Christopher Trotman Nixon. His dad was at one time the catcher in high school for Catfish Hunter in North Carolina. And Jason Giambi takes care of it over at first base. So Trot Nixon is out number 1.
Here's the A's defense behind him. If he's throwing well, the infield will get a lot of play. And Miguel Tejada is a guy that's just on the brink of stardom, of moving into that big 3 or making it a big 4 rotation of the great shortstops in the American League. He makes a lot of great plays. He has great reflexes and a very strong arm. A lot of quickness there at shortstop.
Now here is Jose Offerman. And with the acquisition of the RBI man, Manny Ramirez, it stood to reason that Offerman was a key man in this lineup, because 2 years ago he was the igniter. He was on base all the time, stealing bases, setting up RBI opportunities. And there's that curveball in there for a called strike. But last year he was hurt, didn't have nearly the season, and that really hurt their lineup.
Yes, I think Offerman and Dante Bichette are kind of one of the reasons that Jimmy Williams and Duquette, the general manager, are not seeing eye to eye, because those guys make a lot of money and they're not playing every day. And they've both had proven performances in the past. Dante Bichette has averaged, 100 RBIs almost for the last 4 or 5 years before he was injured. And Jose Offerman, also another good offensive player.
1 ball, 2 strikes, the count to Offerman. And there's that splitter. Or was that the forkball?
Well, he told me it was a splitter, so we'll call it a splitter.
The splitter for the strikeout. 2 down.
But for people at home to understand the difference, usually a splitter is real hard and it's fast and you can't see the difference. It just the bottom falls out. That looks more like a splitter. And a forkball is one that's it's a slower speed and it tumbles. You can see it tumbling. Whereas the splitter, you really can't see it tumble because it's so fast and the rotation is so quick.
Now Carl Everett, 282, 4 homers, 18 batted in, and that's a foul off to the left. By the way, here in Oakland, because of the huge football structure out in center field, we're able to perfectly center our pitch camera. So we are looking right across second base over the pitcher's mound, right directly on home plate, without that angle off to the side that we usually get from the center field camera. And that's high. I mean, there are other ways that this angle will distort maybe high and low and that sort of thing. But there's our camera out there in what here in Oakland they call Mount Davis, for the owner of the Oakland Raiders, Al Davis. That got him. And so Everett is aboard, and Manny Ramirez will bat here in the first with somebody on base.
And one of the reasons you want to pitch Everett inside, he stands so close to the plate, and you try to keep him from extending his arms. But every once in a while, he's going to get hit when you come off the plate inside.
More guys, it seems, Joe, are being hit by pitches in Major League Baseball than ever before. This year, it's been 1 batter for every 100 trips to the plate. Last year was 1 batter every 121 trips. You go back to 1990, 1 batter every 186 trips to the plate. 1980, 1 batter every 245. So, I mean, it has really gone up amazingly in the last 20 years. Ramirez down the left field line. That's going to be a base hit. Johnny Damon cuts it off. Everett digging for third. He'll make it. Now, as the throw comes in wide, Ramirez goes to second base. Now, that was good heads-up base running by Ramirez, even though the throw was going to second base.
Well, they often say that Ramirez is not a good base runner, but this is a smart play by Ramirez. He saw the ball was well off the bag, and he just continued on to second base. But what I like about him is he attacks the first pitch, fastball in, and that's where they try to pitch him. And that ball is in. You can see it's moving off the plate inside. And watch how he gets his arms through it. And he gets the barrel of the bat there. He is just a great hitter. And you see him react to the throw being offline. He just continues on to second base.
So Ramirez seeing that that throw was wide and that there was nobody at the bag because the throw was coming off the bag, swipe second in effect. And here is Troy O'Leary. O'Leary hitting only .209. 1 home run, 9 runs batted in. He has not yet gotten it going. O'Leary has hit .286 with men in scoring position, however. Red Sox with a 2-out scoring threat. And Lidle is too far in with that one.
And the key here is that, I mean, you're going to get Pedro Martinez. You definitely do not want to spot him any runs before he goes to the mound. It's going to be tough enough to score off from him, but if you give him a lead to work with, he's doubly tough.
Well, that, as Art Howe was talking about before the game, he thinks it does put the heat on the pitcher who is opposing Pedro. That changeup is up and away. 3-0 the count. You've got a switch hitter, Jason Varitek, on deck. The official scorer has not yet made up his mind as to whether.
Well, he just moved. What they do is just say he's moved up on the throw. The throw, they're trying to say the throw was going to third base or something, I guess.
That's a ball outside.
They may not rule it an error, which it appeared to be to me, but they may not rule it.
Although, I mean, he went to second base as the throw was coming in, right, when he saw that the throw was going to be off the bag, right?
Correct. That's what I say. It should, to me, it's an error, but you know, they may not score it as an error.
Now Rick Peterson, the pitching coach, is out there. I want to give Manny a double.
Well, I don't think you can do that. Well, I guess you can. I mean, you can do anything they want to, right?
I'm giving him a double because it was sharp. It was a sharp base running play.
Yeah, it was a sharp base running play, but he actually stopped.
I mean, it wasn't.
And then the bad throw, he continued on. See, if he would have continued and the throw was offline, then I agree with you.
So if he'd never stopped.
Right, but he did stop, and he took off again after he saw the throw was offline. That's why I believe it should be an error.
There's other times where a guy tries for a double.
Right.
But then the throw comes in offline.
And that's a double.
Yeah.
Right.
But like since he stopped, you want it to be an error.
Yeah, since he stopped
Damon
at first base, I think there should be an error.
Now, that's not because you're favoring Manny Ramirez over Damon, is it?
No.
Okay. Here's Jason Varitek, switch hitting catcher with bases loaded, 2 down. Right to the second baseman, Menachino. And that brings the inning to an end. So Lidle gets through the 2-out threat. Now Pedro Martinez takes the mound. Jason Giambi coming up third.
Bob.
From the Oakland Coliseum, no score. The Athletics coming up. And here is the Nextel batting order for Art Howe's Oakland Athletics. Johnny Damon leading it off against Pedro Martinez, the igniter acquired from Kansas City, who has not done much igniting since coming to Oakland. Frankie Menachino at second base. He's done a fine job. Then the MVP from last year, Jason Giambi, hitting third.
Well, Damon is the key to this lineup, I believe. If you get some runners on in front of Giambi, he will pick them up. But when no one's on base, they can pitch around him or make sure that he can't pull anything. So Johnny Damon's slow start has really affected, you know, this ball club because they needed a leadoff hitter, and now they have one, but he's off to a slow start. And when you look at Pedro Martinez, you're simply looking at the best. I mean, he is undoubtedly the best pitcher in baseball at this time. I mean, he has an overpowering fastball, a great changeup, and a great slider. He has 3 dominant pitchers, and most of your good pitchers only have 2, and sometimes 1. But he has 3 dominant pitches, and he can change on you at any time. If he doesn't have his good fastball today, he can go to a changeup. He can always go to a change or even a slider. So all 3 of those pitches are out pitches, which is unusual for anyone to have 3 out pitches in their repertoire.
And the guys they call the drummers out in the outfield seats. Get the fans here to chant, "Let's go Oakland." Fastball is up and away. Now, Pedro threw 136 pitches in his previous start on Tuesday up at Safeco Field in Seattle. And we'll see how he recovers from that. There's a check swing and a foul off to the left. Now, our people, Joe, at the Elias Bureau did some checking for us. And in the last 3 years, this is the 15th time that Pedro has made a start after throwing 125 pitches or more, and that fastball is a strike. 1 and 2. And in the past, anyway, he has recovered awfully well from those relatively high pitch counts. He is 12 and 0 with 2 no decisions in his previous 14 starts after the heavy pitch count. Damon fights it off. Now wait a minute, where's all those change-ups and curveballs and sliders you're talking about? I'm just seeing fastballs.
Well, but he can get you out with 1 pitch. That's the whole point. And you have to be aware of the other 2 because they're great pitches as well. But you always have to look for the fastball off of him.
And Damon got another one and gets a base hit to left field. Johnny Damon, who came into the game hitting only .203, but he gets the hit here against Pedro.
Well, he tried to get a fastball in. I don't think he gets it up enough. And this fastball is in, and it tails back over the plate a little bit. And you see Damon, even then, he's tied up on it, but he fights it off, and he lines it to left field for a base hit. Good job of hitting there by Damon. Here's the defense. And Mike Lansing is playing shortstop tonight. The shortstops, Grayback, except they have not made an error this entire season.
That's Damon over at first. Now, Damon is a base stealer, and I would think, Joe, that they'd want to run here. The Red Sox have been very susceptible to the stolen base this year. In fact, Oakland, which, I mean, the stolen base is not much of their arsenal. I mean, they don't run. But Art Howe had his ball club running on Friday, the first game of this year. They stole 4 bases in that game.
Well, that was the first time in the last few years that they've even attempted that many stolen bases in the ball game.
Pedro holding a long while. Now, just as he was breaking from his stretch, timeout was granted by home plate umpire Andy Fletcher.
Well, sometimes a pitcher can injure himself like that. I think you have to step out a little sooner, and I think that's what Jerry Veritek is talking to. And when you hold the ball a long time, it does freeze the hitter, so he doesn't want to stand out there a long time. But I don't think you can do it when he starts his motion to the plate. You shouldn't call the timeout at that point.
There's a curveball, high and tight. 1 ball and no strike. Now, Damon stole 46 bases last year. Was only thrown out 9 times. That was while he was with Kansas City. So far this year, I mean, he hadn't been on base all that often, but he leads the Athletics with 5 steals in 7 attempts. No score, last of the first. Oakland trying to mount a threat here. Ooh, that one catching the outside edge. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, he gave up the base hit on the fastball to Damon, and since that time he's thrown 2 sliders. This is the second slider. The one was inside, and that's a slider over the outside.
Frank Menachino, 6 home runs, 16 batted in. Well, he was penciled in as a utility man when the season began. When Ortiz, the young second baseman, went down with an injury, he was put in there every day, and he has really produced. High and tight.
There are a lot of base stealers who have problems when a guy does hold the ball, and that seems to be what Pedro is trying to do to Damon. Maybe that's the scouting report they have on Damon as a stolen base threat, that if you hold the ball, he doesn't go. A lot of guys get anxious at first base, and then they freeze up if a guy holds the ball that long.
Well, what do you think? It's 2-1. He's going now.
But you'd expect Pedro to change his motion sometimes, just hit and go, but he's holding it again.
Still holding. Go to first. Damon back in, standing on the horse. Fairly close. Offerman putting the tag on.
Good move there by Pedro. I mean, good quick move, good solid throw right on the inside. But Pedro does have a pretty high leg kick, so you should be able to read him pretty easily.
Oakland trying to get the upper hand here early on against Pedro Martinez. Damon, a long lead over there. He's running. No, he stopped. The pop up. There is one away. Steins makes the grab, looking into a very bright, fierce sun right now.
Well, the first base coach is now talking to Damon, and I think you were right, John. It was supposed to be a hit and run, because Menachino definitely took a shot toward right field, but Damon did not continue. The reason I say it should be pretty easy to get a jump off Pedro is because he's a great pitcher. The better the pitcher, the better his rhythm. The better his rhythm is, the easier it is for you to read it.
Mike Quaddy, the first base coach. Here's Jason Giambi, American League MVP, and a shift is put on by the Red Sox. 3 infielders play to the right side. Fastball too low. 1 ball to no strikes. And Giambi had been getting an amazing number of walks. As you see the 3 infielders, that's the shortstop there, playing virtually the second base position. Mike Lansing, the third baseman. Hillenbrand is playing shortstop on the left side. Damon again with a false start from first. That pitch called a strike to Giambi. He looks back at the home plate umpire, Andy Fletcher. 1 ball, 1 strike.
John, I don't like, the guy to bluff at first base because you also distract the hitter. See, Giambi sees him break out of the corner of his eye, and that distracts him a little bit. I think when you have a hitter like Jason Giambi up there, you let him hit with 2 outs. Well, with 1 out, you let him hit because he can hit the ball to right field, get you to third.
And that's foul down the left field line. Giambi has hit well. He's hitting .333. 6 home runs, 10 doubles, but he's also walked 31 times. And he has not had many actual at-bats with men in scoring position. He's only had 16 at-bats in 30 games with a runner in scoring position. Compare that with Manny Ramirez, who's had 42 such at-bats already. 1-2, Pedro ahead of him. And Damon back to the bag at first. I was asking Giambi, Joe, before the game about his approach against Pedro, and he said the tough thing about Pedro is that changeup, that there was such a severe difference in speed between his changeup and fastball. He says if you actually look changeup against Pedro and he throws the fastball, you won't even have time to even think about swinging.
Well, to hit a guy like Pedro, you have to look fastball first and try to adjust. You can't adjust to the fastball if you're looking for anything else, whether it's the slider or the changeup.
1-2. Pedro holding a long line. Jammed him with that slider. And the throw goes to second for 1, back to first, double play. The shortstop, Lansing, flipping to the third baseman, Hillenbrand, and they get the inning-ending double play. No score. We head to the second. Ball presented by Nextel. We're in Oakland, the Boston Red Sox, the Oakland Athletics. The rubber match of their 3-game series. Oakland with a rare chance to gain ground on first place Seattle. The Red Sox trying to win to keep pace with the Blue Jays and the Yankees in the East. Cory Lidle throws a slider for a strike to Shea Hillenbrand. And John, excited to finally see this young prospect of the Red Sox farm system. Before this year, he had never played above Double-A ball. And getting the shot here because of injuries on that infield. And this guy likes to hack. The shortstop Tejada, nice play, and Hillenbrand is retired.
Let's take a look at the double play that ended the inning, and we'll show you a very unique double play. This is now the third baseman. Here's the shortstop. And let's see what happens here. Lansing fields the ball, and he flips it to Hillenbrand. Now watch right here. This is a very close play at second. He is out, but it's a close play. And you would think that they wouldn't get Giambi at first base, but they do by a pretty large margin there, and it's a double play.
And the batter, Chris Steins, takes the breaking ball for a called strike. Steins, formerly with the Cincinnati Reds, hitting .250, 1 homer, 2 batted in. Red Sox use a lot of different batting orders. Jimmy Williams has kept things very interesting in that clubhouse. That one right back to Lidle. Steins is quickly retired. 2 down. Williams trying to find that combination, and the guys have been pretty steady here. Carl Everett and Manny Ramirez.
That's because they've got the most playing time.
But I mean, they're steady also hitting 3rd and 4th.
Right.
Steins has hit leadoff some games. Now he's hitting 8th in this game. But he's had a hard time finding somebody to hit leadoff who's getting the job done. And Steins is not hitting that well. Trot Nixon was off to a slow start. He's hitting leadoff tonight. Here's Mike Lansing. .250 batting average. Carl Everett expressed some frustration over all the movements in the batting order from manager Jimmy Williams earlier this week. although he is not one of the guys that's been moved around. I guess he's expressing that on behalf of his teammates. Finally, manager Jimmy Williams held a team meeting at short notice here yesterday. And apparently, although nobody would speak about it for attribution, apparently the hot topic was about guys complaining about lack of playing time or about their roles and playing together as a team. Here's what Everett said. He said, other than me and Manny and Hillenbrand, no one knows who's going to play until we get to the ballpark. It's tough to play that way. Cutting over from third, that's Chavez. And Lansing is retired. It was a 7-pitch inning for Lidle. Pedro Martinez heads back to the mound. No score.
You know, ideas and inventions come from people in all...
In Oakland tonight, Red Sox nothing, Athletics nothing. Last of the second inning, we're looking at Pedro Martinez tonight. And Pedro, Joe, I know reminds you of some of the greats back in the 60s.
Well, I've always been asked who the greatest pitcher I ever saw was, and I've always done it by saying Koufax had the best stuff. Marichal was the best pitcher, just the guy that could move the ball in and out, great control, change speeds. And Bob Gibson was the most fierce competitor you could ever hope for, and plus he had great stuff as well. So that's the way I've always gauged things when people ask me, well, who's the best pitcher? Who is this? Was Koufax better than Marichal? Was Gibson better than Koufax? And my point is all three of them had something different. And in today's game, it's very similar. I think Pedro Martinez is like Koufax. He has the best stuff of anyone. I think Greg Maddux is a pitcher like Juan Marichal, move the ball up and down, in and out, change the speed. And Roger Clemens is the most fierce, maybe, competitor like Bob Gibson.
Romero signs the hitter, and the slider for the strikeout. Signs in there against the tough right-hander. He has had a little success against Pedro, including a home run in 6 at-bats against him before night, but he is quickly dispatched.
And I was surprised, John, that they put a right-hander behind Jason Giambi in this lineup with Pedro, because if Giambi, the base is open, you're going to walk him just to set up a double play.
And Terrence Long has been the second best and most consistent hitter on this ball club.
You know, behind Jason Giambi, he was hitting fourth most of the time. I don't know exactly the reason, but those 2 at-bats with 6 hits is not enough of a sampling to say that he can handle Pedro Martinez.
Terrence Long,
Terrence
Long, the hitter right now, hitting .305. He's got 4 homers, 14 batted in. 1 ball, 1 strike to count. Well, that sort of harkens back to the first inning when Johnny Damon led off with a single and never advanced beyond first base the rest of the inning. High, deep, but very much foul.
John, we've been here several times, you know, you and I, you and me, and then I've also been here on time on Wednesdays. And Damon, he gets on base in the first inning, and very rarely does he ever steal a base in the first inning. I'm a little shocked at that.
Even just attempt it. But then again, the A's, until recently, as we mentioned, they were not a team that
would try a lot of, you know, stolen bases. But that's his job.
If you've got that big weapon, Giambi, then maybe you're thinking, hey, if he steals, then Giambi's not hitting.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's what they normally would think, but
you know, that you're not winning ball games, I think you have to change something, and they did on Friday night. I think that's the key. They did make some adjustments.
Now that pitch was close, but I think from our angle, Joe, you can see that pitch was a little bit off the outside corner. That camera really with no angle, straight, looking dead on at home plate. Shortstop, and Lansing. Long retired out number 2. Well, I mean, I remember you mentioned this various times when Maddox or Clemens, guys like that are on the mound. Sometimes a team has to try to force the action a little bit. You know, they get somebody on, try to steal, try to hit and run, try to do various things to scratch out runs against that guy.
Well, you have to try to keep them from getting comfortable on the mound, John. When they settle in
and just get to throw strike after strike and concentrate completely on the hitter, they're in control. But if you make them have to think about a hit and run, make them think about someone stealing a base, it gives you a little edge. It gives you a better chance.
Jeremy Giambi. And that one is in there for a called strike. Curveball, and the count is 0-1 to Jeremy, hitting .246, 1 home run, 5 runs batted in. 2 down, nobody on, no score in the second inning. There's that changeup. That was pretty close. on the outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. They're the drummers. They came out here last year, and the fans got into it, started chanting their A's cheer. And another changeup called a strike. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Now they're sort of like local personalities, Joe. They have commercials, they do appearances, and the A's gave them passes for every game to come out. They're part of the scene now here at A's games. And everybody thought that playing the drums when they were kids would lead to nothing. 2 balls, 2 strikes to count for Jeremy Giambi.
Kind of reminds me of the liveliness of games in Cuba and Puerto Rico. A lot of drums, a lot of action.
Foul tip. He stays alive just barely.
Pedro, John, I have to tell you this. Pedro seems to be getting loose now. A fastball on the waist pitch was clocked at 95 miles an hour. Is the best fastball he had thrown.
2-2. That is through the hole. Base hit. Well, so far in the Giambi household, Jeremy has got the bragging rights.
Well, this is another fastball. Now watch the catcher's target, and he'll tell you where this was supposed to be. It was supposed to be away. He gets it inside, and he inside outs it and gets a little ground ball in the hit. Well, actually, I don't know where that's supposed to be because it looked like he set up in the middle of the plate. I thought it was away, but it really wasn't. Maybe he was just going to overpower him with a fastball,
which he's capable of doing. Here is Miguel Tejada. Tejada had such a huge year last year for the Athletics. You know, he, with the 30 homers and 115 batted in, that put him up there in the Garcia Parra, Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez league. As pointed out, he also, right here in the Bay Area, had more RBIs than did Barry Bonds last year across the Bay from here. And Barry had an MVP type year.
Now here's the slider from Pedro. And it's a hard slider. Actually, that's in between a slider and a curve. It's not his curveball, but it's a little more downward break than his normal slider.
0-2 the count. And right to the backstop. So Jeremy Giambi is the first Athletics runner to move into scoring position tonight. Now Tejada can do some serious damage with a base hit.
Well, you could see that Veritek, watch him, he'll give the sign up high. He wants him to throw a high fastball up and out of the zone, but this one gets away from Pedro, and it's much too high. In fact, Veritek only gets a glove on it, but that was supposed to be a high waist pitch on an 0-2 pitch, a high fastball.
Veritek was a little slow in coming out of that crouch. I think he's kind of stunned.
I think he was. He's so used to Pedro getting the ball in the area where he wants it.
So on the wild pitch, a runner at second. Tejada broken bat looper, and that ends the inning as Steins takes care of it. So 1 man left. We're heading to the third, top of the order. Nixon, Offerman, and Everett. No score.
ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Nextel, is brought to you by the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. Las Vegas, what do you want, when you want it. And by Domino's. Get the door. It's Domino's.
On we go to the third inning, the top of the order for the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox nothing, Athletics nothing. Trot Nixon, Jose Offerman, and Carl Everett coming up against Cory Lidle. Nixon grounded out to first his first time. That's right over the outside edge. Called strike 1.
And a nice sinking action to his fastball, the one that he keeps down. He'll get a lot of ground balls if they swing at that pitch.
Now time taken. Lidle taking a long while here, deciding with Ramon Hernandez, his catcher, what pitch to throw next. 0-1 the count. Now Lidle, last year with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, got involved in some bad blood between the Red Sox and the Devil Rays. Now Hernandez is going to go out and speak directly to Lidle about this. And while they talk, we want to tell you about the NHL playoffs continuing tomorrow on ESPN. 7 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 Pacific. It's Game 6 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. The New Jersey Devils and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto leads the series 3-2. Talk about some bad blood.
Yeah.
ESPN, ESPN2, and ABC, your home for all NHL Stanley Cup playoff action. Big crowd here in Oakland today for this ball game. So I think they may have 40,000 here tonight at the Coliseum. 0-1 the count. And that curveball swung on and missed 0-2. Now Lidle, it was August the 29th last year in a game that Pedro Martinez was pitching for Boston, and there ended up being a beanball war in that game. Lidle ended up throwing a pitch behind the Red Sox, Brian Daubach, for which he received a 3-game suspension. Fastball too far in. He got ejected. And then after the suspension, he ended up making some starts at the end of the year, including one that was outstanding against Oakland. And apparently the Athletics, as Brian Daubach looking on. And the strikeout with a changeup. Nice pitch. One away.
First baseman was Alfred.
Here's a pitch. You can see it's a little changeup. He holds it in a different manner than, say, Pedro. Pedro has a choke change, as they call it, or a circle change.
I mean, he held that like you'd hold a fastball, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think the knuckle was...
Offerman fouls one off to the right.
I think his knuckle actually controlled that pitch. That's why it's more like a shot put than a fastball.
Shot put change.
Yeah, well, you can throw it as hard as you want. It's not going to come out very fast.
Offerman struck out his first time. Cory Lidle on the mound. One time with the Mets, then the Devil Rays. They say last year, September the 8th, he had the best game of his career. 7 shutout innings. Gave up just a couple of hits to Jason Giambi, who, by the way, is now his teammate here and was when the two played in high school together. And Lidle has pitched well. Doesn't have anything to show for it yet, as he's had 3 real strong outings in a row. But the Athletics have not been able to win those games. They keep giving up a lead after he gets to the bullpen. And Lidle is still 0-1. He got clobbered his first start and has 3 strong ones after that. That is Jason Giambi. He waves off his old high school mate, Lidle, and gets the unassisted put out. 2 down.
And John, I was talking about the pitchers of the Sixers and the guys that that reminds me that Pedro Martinez is overpowering like Sandy Koufax. Greg Maddux has the wherewithal on the mound, the change of speeds, and the great control like Marichal. And Roger Clemens, he's just a tough competitor, and he battles you all the time like Bob Gibson, and he also has great stuff. The 3 guys I mentioned are in the Hall of Fame. Guess what? These 3 are going in as well. So I think they're on their way. Yeah. But they're all very similar to the guys that I mentioned earlier in what they do to a hitter to get him out off balance.
Carl Everett hit by a pitch his first time. 2 down, nobody on. Manny Ramirez on deck. The curveball drops in there. 1 ball, 1 strike.
John, I had an interesting conversation with Rick Peterson, the pitching coach of the A's, and it was very interesting. He told me a lot of things that he tries to do with his staff, and I'll relay those sometime during the ball game.
That's a foul. 1 ball, 2 strikes. How about now?
Well, last time we talked about the fact that all the right-handers work from the first base side of the rubber. Remember we were showing every pitcher that right-hander that went out on the mound was started. Well, and I figured then, and I mentioned it then, that I guarantee there was a reason for that. Well, there is a big reason. He figures that they get in better position to throw the ball from that side. He says if you work from the third base side and you're right-handed and you stay square, you're actually aiming toward off the plate inside. And if you stand on the outside as he's doing, you can get square and you can get to the inside, tail the ball to the outside, whether it's a right-hander or a left-hander. He said it gives you more options to stay square, and that's what it's all about, staying square so you can make the ball go to either corner.
To the outside, and Everett again just got a piece of it to stay alive. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
And he was basically mentioning that when you stand in the middle, you're at an angle every single time. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's complicated, and I hope I'm explaining it well enough for fans at home to understand. I mean, because he made me understand, so it can't. I said, well, if I can understand it, the people at home should be able to understand.
I said, have him call us. 2-2 the count. Almost hit him again with that fastball.
But he also said that his educational background was psychology. So he had a meeting with his team, with the pitchers last week, and he talked to them about what they needed to do to get back on track.
How do you feel about that? What are your feelings, Joe?
Well, that's ball 4 to Everett. He gets the walk.
You know, basically, he just used his educational background to try to get inside their heads. And he said, make no mistake about it, that a lot of the expectations coming out of spring training did have an effect on some of the pitchers on the ball club.
Go with that thought.
And I like that simply because, you know, they're not shying away from that. They said that's a problem we have to deal with.
Here's Manny Ramirez.
Let's watch him hit.
You remember the old Bob Newhart show, the first one?
Yeah.
Where he was a psychologist?
Correct.
Yeah. That's all the stuff that I know about psychologists. Here is Manny Ramirez, the great RBI man. And on a changeup, he bounces it foul.
I talked to Manny about what he thinks about when he's in the batter's box.
When I'm hitting good in the play, I just, trust my hand, see the ball all the way to home plate and react. I think the main thing on hitting is just seeing the ball and trusting your hands.
And what he really means by trust your hands is staying back and throwing your hands at the ball, not swinging with your body, swinging only with your hands. Stay behind the ball. Don't get out front. And he does that very, very well.
He got a double, or got credit for a double his first time. The second, and Aquino. And Ramirez retired. So are the Red Sox. 1 man left. Last of the third inning. Chavez, Hernandez, and Damon coming up against Pedro Martinez. No score. Sunday Night Baseball from Oakland. No score. Pedro Martinez to Eric Chavez, who pops it up foul. Coming back, the Boston catcher Baratek did his in amongst the spectators, just beyond the backstop. So it is 0-1. Chavez followed by Hernandez and Damon.
And John, it's going to be very difficult for all the hitters on both sides now because that shadow at home plate is moved out in front, so the pitcher's in the sunlight, as you can see there, and then right across there it gets dark because the lights cannot take hold. It's not dark enough yet, but it makes it very difficult to pick up the pitches.
Look at it. Soft to the third, Hillenbrand throws him out. There is one away. Pedro Martinez, I mean, he has had quite a run. The last 4 years in particular have been extraordinary, beginning in 1997. Pedro's 77 wins, 25 losses those 4 years. That's before this year. Now, Sandy Koufax had a Hall of Fame run, 1963 through 66. He was 97 and 27. The ERA was actually 1.86, not 1.28, but we're not going to quibble. 1.86 was pretty good, too. Pedro, 2.16. And they both won 3 Cy Youngs in those 4-year stretches.
And John, one of the interesting things there is that,
in Koufax's day, he would pitch 9 innings most of the time, and he would win or lose the ball game.
Whereas I think a lot of times Pedro has left ball games with a lead, and they didn't hold the lead.
Twice this year already. Popped up out in front of the plate. Baratek. Hillenbrand takes charge and makes the catch, stepping right between Pedro and the catcher Baratek. Hernandez, the catcher, retired. 2 down.
But as Pete Rose used to say all the time to me, John,
if you want to win, stay in the game. If you're the best pitcher, stay out there. But look at those numbers. And again, I think
some of this is misleading, as you can see the difference between their earned run averages.
Koufax had a 1.65 differential between the rest of the league and Major League Baseball and his earned run average. Pedro's is even higher. His differential is 2.43. And the reason for that is there are a lot more hitters hitting home runs, scoring runs today than there was when Koufax pitched.
Here's Johnny Damon. Well, Juan Marichal this weekend down in Texas was asked about Pedro compared to Koufax himself and Gibson, some of those guys. And he said, well, you can't really compare him because he says, we worked in a 4-man rotation. And
we pitched 300 innings a year. Now, when you go through that era in Koufax, one of those years he got hurt, missed the last month or so. 1964. The other 3 years he pitched over 300 innings each one of those seasons.
Well, that's right. John, I still believe it's the same thing with hitting. When we try to compare, I don't compare numbers. I'm comparing a talent and the way that they go about their jobs. Because I really, you know me, I'm not that interested in statistics anyway.
Into left field. There is O'Leary. That is the inning. Damon is gone. 3 up and 3 down. We're going to the 4th inning. O'Leary coming up. Pedro Martinez and the Athletics are 0-0.
Hey, man.
Troy O'Leary leads off for the Red Sox against Cory Lidle. And that's a called strike. O'Leary walked his first time. No scores. We start the 4th inning. O'Leary will be followed by Varitek and then Hillenbrand. Cory Lidle matched up against the great Pedro Martinez. It sounds like a mismatch, doesn't it? Change up. Boom. Just off the outside. Again from our camera, which is dead on as they telling us, and it looked a little bit off the outside corner. There's Pedro giving up no runs, 2 hits in the first 3 innings. Lidle has given up no runs, 1 hit in 3.
And John, this is what happens a lot of times. The guy just kind of rises to the occasion. When you're facing Pedro Martinez as a pitcher, you say that you know you have to be at the top of your game just to stay in the ballgame. So you do reach back and get a little extra. And from a hitter's perspective, you have to be at the top of your game or you're going to embarrass you. So, you know, pitchers like Pedro bring out the best in other teams. It may not seem that way because he still dominates, but everyone's concentration level goes up a notch when Pedro Martinez is on the mound.
2-2. That is to Giambi at first. And he gets the unassisted put out. And there is one away.
Coming up next Sunday night, we'll be in Cincinnati, and we'll check out with Neon Dion, who's back in the big leagues, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. It's the Houston Astros against the Reds and Deion Sanders. All Sunday night telecasts are available on ESPN Radio and in Spanish on ESPN Deportes. Now here is Jason Varitek. Big crowd at the Coliseum. They might even have 40 here tonight, Joe. It's Varitek. Did he swing? No. Third base umpire Larry Young says. Cory Lidle has induced 8 ground ball outs already.
John, I want to go back to something we talked about in the 3rd inning with the bases loaded, and he was pitching to Troy O'Leary. And we said then, you know, that's going to be the ball game. It may not seem like that this early in the game, but if he gives up a base hit to O'Leary and falls behind Pedro 2-0, that may be enough. I mean, Pedro is that type of pitcher. You can't fall behind him too often early in the ball game and expect to win.
Pedro watching his adversary on the mound, and there's a breaking ball over the outside. Nice pitch. Strike 2. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Cory Fulton Lidle. He has a twin brother, Kevin, who's a catcher in the Cleveland organization. Little tapper. Lidle. Another ground ball out. That's 9 of the 11 outs on ground balls by the Red Sox. ESPN Game Track. Cory Lidle with all of those ground ball outs. And he's been matching Pedro 0 for 0. Nothing as we head into the 1st as Olmedo signs. The cleanup hitter struck out in that at bat in the 2nd. 2 down, nobody on. Here is Shea Hillenbrand up from Double-A ball, and he's played in every game for the Red Sox. And that one high and tight, a breaking ball, it missed. Hillenbrand has just done a sensational job. He's playing a strong defense at third base, hitting .317. And the guy goes up there to swing, Joe. He has walked 1 time. He's had 120 at bats and 1 walk. Whacks that one to left field. Damon right there. 3 up, 3 down. Last of the 4th, Menachino, then Jason Giambi coming up. No score. Every Sunday Night Baseball presented by Nextel. Red Sox nothing, Athletics nothing. Going to the last of the 4th inning before a big crowd in Oakland. And this copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. For the most extensive coverage of Major League Baseball, log on to MLB
That's what I did Friday night, Joe. I signed up for the season package. You hear all the radio broadcasts, $9.95. And as I was packing my bags in Philadelphia to come here, I listened to the A's Red Sox game.
And they charged you?
Well, it's only $9.95. You can listen to every game the whole season.
Okay.
I know that that's a little steep for you.
Right.
But I was willing to spring for it.
Well, maybe give me a loan, and why don't you sign me up as well?
Well, and I didn't do as well in my last contract negotiation as you did, but Frank Menachino, and that breaking ball is high. 3-1. Pedro Martinez with Menachino up there. Menachino just like to get on base with Jason Giambi coming up next. That's been the rub so far for the A's this year. People getting on base in front of Giambi. There have not been many of them. No score. We're in the last of the fourth inning. Fastball crackling through there. 3-2. There's Giambi on deck. Up foul coming back. Baratek is chased, but again it is out of play. 3 balls, 2 strikes. We've got the dark shadows of the late afternoon. Pedro in the sunshine, Joe.
And then the ball, you can see how quickly it gets dark there. Good job by Menachino just to foul that off. That was a pretty good fastball, and it got right on top of him before he could pull the trigger.
Battling it out here with Pedro Martinez. Time taken, he backs away. Jason Giambi was saying that this is the time of day where they played those playoff games with the Yankees last year. He said that was really tough the first 3 innings or so. And Aquino into left center field. O'Leary got a late break and then makes a beautiful catch.
John, you mentioned how difficult it is to see out there. It's a lot of the bright sun, and I think he was fooled, as you mentioned, a little bit. But then he finally found it, came in and made a nice catch. You see he has his shades down already. That high fastball again, and he jams him. It's a little flare, but O'Leary thought it was going farther, and he got a good jump and came in and picked it up after he found the ball.
Now Jason Giambi as O'Leary makes the play back with Pedro. And again, the shift is on. The Red Sox playing 3 infielders to the right side. Giambi, he hit it foul off his foot.
Well, that sort of tells you how they're going to pitch Giambi, and that means they're going to stay inside, which they did the first time up, and they're going to throw in some changeups.
That's the view of that defense from our camera right in the backstop. Jason Giambi, 330 for the year. Right into the defense and is thrown out by Steins, who was plugging up that hole.
Well, they pitched him and played him that way. They pitched him in and play him to right field. Well, let's take a look. You see they set up inside. They want the ball inside. That one's not so much inside, but it was moving towards him a little bit. Giambi pulls it. And you see 3 infielders on the right side, so it becomes a very routine play for Steins.
2 down, nobody on. Olmedo Signs struck out his first time. And that is called a strike on the outside. Now, the Athletics have gotten terrible production out of their 4th place hitters so far this year. Signs was doing that job a lot at the beginning of the year. And they've tried other guys in that spot. Terrence Long finally put in there. He's the one who's done most of the producing and what little has been produced out of the cleanup spot. Of course, they lost the 2 guys who did most of the cleanup hitting, Matt Stayers and Ben Grieve. In the past years, Grieve went in that 3-way trade that brought Oakland Johnny Damon and Cory Lidle. And
Matt Stairs, now with the Chicago Cubs, and he did not have a very good year last year. But they've not been able to fill that void so far. A little bit high. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Signs. Cory Lidle. Well, Lidle is not well known, not even here in Oakland yet. Perhaps a chance to make a name for himself here tonight against Pedro. 2-2. Pedro Martinez, he threw 136 pitches in his last start. That's the most of any of his last 57 starts. Changed up, hit off the fist, foul. 2 balls, 2 strikes. So far, Pedro doesn't seem like he's any the worse for wear.
Well, there is a little, John, I do detect a little bit of the, lack of, let's say, movement on his fastball, because he's only struck out 1 hitter. And that's not normally like Pedro. His fastball usually has a little more hop on it, especially when it was up to Menachino. He was able to foul it off and then hit a fly ball. When his fastball's up like that, and he's got that little extra hop on it, you don't touch it.
On the inside corner, strike 3 called. So Signs has struck out twice. The 2 strikeouts for Pedro, and he has retired 7 in a row. No score. Heading to the 5th inning.
Hi, I'm Wilford Freeman.
Well, of course, we're still going to be busy here, but we'll try and keep you updated on that hockey game, Joe. Here is the pitch now. Chris Stein's first ball swinging against Cory Lidle, base hit. He's going to hold it first as Long comes up throwing a strike to second base. I thought Steins was going to try it, but Terrence Long convinced him otherwise.
A lot of times, John, in a tie ball game, if you lead off and you hit a long single, as it turns out, sometimes you should try it. I mean, it's a tie ball game. You try to get a run. I thought he had a chance to do it. Remember, Terrence Long is left-handed, and he's running this way. He'll have to reverse and turn to throw back. See this? Right there, he should have decided to keep going. Now he turns all the way around. Now he finds it. Yes, he threw a strike, but I think he could have beaten the throw if he would have kept going. You have to remember which way the outfielder is running and whether he's left-handed or right-handed in that situation.
Steins back to the bag at first. Steins, 1 stolen base. The Red Sox have only stolen 6 bases all year, and 3 of those were stolen by Carl Everett. The stolen base is not really part of their repertoire. For instance, the Yankees have stolen 42 bases this year. He's running, and he makes it. Menachino could not hold the throw, and I think he stumbled a little bit as he got there. The running Red Sox with a man in scoring position now.
John, I think you have to try to do something. This is a very close ball game, as most of Pedro's games are, because, again, most teams rise to the occasion when they play him. The throw is right there. A nice throw there by... That was a nice throw, but he drops the ball, actually. I mean, that ball short hops him, but he still should have been able to make that play.
So a steal for Steins, his second. Now Lansing's got to get him over to third. He might even bunt. Let's take a look. Down and in with a hard sinker. 2-0.
And when you're a team like the Red Sox and you know that Pedro's pitch, you say, well, if we can get him 1, that may be enough. Obviously, you don't stop at 1, but you try to get him 1, give him something to work with. And they've stolen the base. You have to get him to third base if you're Lansing. Either you take a shot to right field or you go ahead and bunt, as he squared around to do there.
He's had a look, Lansing has, at third base coach Gene Lamont. Not bunting. Takes inside. 2-1 the count now. So I guess when the count got to 2-0, that colored the thinking of Jimmy Williams about whether he should just give up an out or maybe do something different. 3 balls. I thought they called that pitches.
No, that's what I say. Didn't. It's 3-0. You're right.
3-0 the count. That one is called a strike. 3-1 now to Lansing.
And this is a matter of managerial preference here, whether you want to let him go ahead and take a shot at this 3-1 fastball, or you want him to go ahead and take a shot to right field, whether you want him to just try to drive it or not. A lot of managers have different philosophies.
Well, what's your philosophy?
My philosophy is to get him over, but I'm not managing.
Well, Lansing, a long-time #2 hitter in many lineups. He knows how to get this job done. On the inside.
That was a good pitch there by Lidle, because that tells you right there that Lansing was trying to go the other way rather than drive the ball. He was going to try to do his job and move him over.
So he didn't swing at it because he's a veteran.
Inside. Yeah, well, if he was trying to pull the ball, that was a pitch to hit, a fastball middle of the plate in. That's what he wanted. But he was trying to go the other way, so that ball tied him up a little bit.
A big batter in this inning.
Yeah, but now with 2 strikes, you just go ahead and hit. You don't even worry about where the ball goes. You just go ahead and try to get a base hit and drive him in.
Back out of play. Still 3 balls, 2 strikes to Mike Lansing. But I mean, a big batter in this inning, to whether or not the Red Sox are going to be able to squeeze out a run here against Lidle, who has been awfully tough on them so far.
Exactly. I think Lansing tried to do the job. He's done what he's supposed to do. You know, he was trying to take a shot to right field. He was going to bunt once. So I think now it's just up to him to try to drive him in. With 2 strikes, you can't just go up there and give yourself up anymore.
So if he doesn't hit behind him now with 2 strikes, you don't blame him?
I don't blame him. No, it's 2 strikes. You try to drive him in.
He walks. So now 2 men on, nobody out. And the top of the order comes up for the Red Sox with Trot Nixon. And now the Athletics are going to converge on the mound and talk it over with Frank Menachino coming in from second base, Giambi from first base. Is Art Howe. A little worried look on his face. So now they've got to talk about what to do in case he bunts. What kind of a bunt defense to employ?
Right. I think you have to play it straight up because you're not 100% sure he's going to bunt.
The pitcher, Lidle, walks completely off the mound over to third baseman Chavez. They talk it over as Trot Nixon gets ready to bat.
Well, he wants Chavez to let him know right away whether he's going to take it if it's bunted toward third, or if Lidle's going to be able to come over, pick it up, and make a play at third base.
There's Chavez. Well, he's pulled in a bit. Giambi pulled in a bit at first. And the question is, bunting or not? And the bluff towards second.
Well, that's a good play by Lidle, but just to try to see if Nixon was bunting. Right there, he told you he wasn't bunting. Because on your first move, when he lifts his leg, you usually start around if you're going to bunt. So he wasn't on that particular pitch, but if you're Jimmy Williams, you could always change because you know that's exactly what they were trying to find out.
And the bunt is not much in the Red Sox game either. They've only had 5 sacrifice bunts all year in 30 games. Steins at second, Lansing at first. The wheel play is on. He's not bunting. He lines one down the right field line. Jeremy Giambi makes the catch. Going back to tag up at second, Steins. Good heads-up base running. Steins picked that one up immediately, even though he was running with the pitch, and got back to tag up and still got himself over to third base.
I have to tell you, I was shocked that they put a wheel play on, meaning the shortstop's going to go over to cover third. That's like you know he's bunting, and I didn't think he was bunting because they tried it to see if he was bunting. He didn't move, and then they went after him. I mean, I agree with Jimmy Williams. Once they did that, you have to let him hit. He gets a pitch to hit. He hits it hard, but he hits it right at the right fielder, and Giambi backs up, makes the catch, but because he was going backwards, he had no chance of keeping Steins from tagging up and going to third.
Now Offerman to try and get Steins home from third. 1 out. Chavez shallow at third. Giambi on the bag at first with Lansing. The middle infielders double play death. The changeup is too low. 1 ball and no strikes. Here's how they're playing it defensively.
And what you really have to do here if you're Lidle, you have to really concentrate and make sure you keep the ball down. You have to try to get your infielder the ground ball that you need to try to turn the double play to get out of this inning. So you have to really concentrate here and keep the ball down.
Offerman 0 for 2 in the game. There's that double fake for third and looking towards first.
That unique play.
Unique? Yeah. You ever get picked off on a play like that?
No.
You ever see anybody get picked off?
Very rarely. I've seen a couple.
1 ball and no strikes. Offerman high and deep in the right center field. Giambi turns and looks, and this one is gone. A home run. A 3-run homer for Offerman. And from trying to eke out a run, the Red Sox put 3 on the board on 1 swing of his bat. His 3rd home run of the year. And there are many Red Sox fans in this big crowd because we're hearing them now.
We'll get another look at this. It's not a bad pitch, except it's not away enough. But the pitch is not a bad pitch. It's down. Watch where the pitch is. See, it's down. It's not such a bad pitch. You just have to give Offerman credit for lifting that sinker and still getting it out of the ballpark.
Here is Carl Everett, so they get the big fly, and now the big hitters are coming up. So Offerman acted like he was Carl Everett there, or Manny Ramirez. Everett bounces it foul. Everett has been hit by a pitch, and he is walked. Jose Offerman, he didn't hit that many home runs. That got out there pretty well, too.
Well, that was a long way. As you said, that's a big fly. It was in the second deck out there in right center.
Shortstop Miguel Tejada. Everett really hustling up the line, and he just got it by a step. Great hustle by Everett there.
And the difference between that fastball and the one that Offerman hit out, that fastball was tailing away to the outside edge of the plate, whereas the one Offerman had was more over the plate. And watch where this pitch is. See, it's tailing away. He reaches out and he hits the ground ball. That's what they wanted Offerman to do. But he didn't get it toward the outside edge. He got it over the plate, and Offerman put a charge into it.
2 down in the inning, and here is Manny Ramirez with nobody on base. That was the 42nd career home run by Jose Offerman in just under 4,700 at bats. So he doesn't hit them that often. Now this guy does. He's got a little bit better home run ratio than that. Manny with 9 home runs this year and 120 at bats.
Now, one of the things I found out about Manny, a lot of people think that he just walks up and hits. And I talked to him today, and in the past, he says he studies tapes. He studied tapes of a lot of good hitters like Juan Gonzalez. He studied tapes of Garcia Parra. They talk about hitting. I mean, he talks to everyone about hitting.
Off the outside.
And he has a great approach to hitting. I mean, he's a guy who's very quiet at the plate, which is something I've always talked about, John, that I really like. The other thing I like about Manny is he keeps his bat up at the top of the strike zone, and he really attacks the ball. He is just, a very fine hitter, but he's very quiet. You don't see a lot of movement, a lot of jumping around in the batter's box.
Now, when you say he's very quiet at the plate, you don't mean that he's...
No, his body is
like
quiet.
Talking to everybody up there. That's not what you mean.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, his body is quiet. But he also said that he watched Juan Gonzalez, and he also watched Julio Franco, these guys that raise their front leg, and he liked that. And that's what you watch him. He raises his front leg a little bit to get his timing down.
Change up for a strike. 3-2. 3-1 change up there from Lidle.
Well, you have to do that to the good hitters like Ramirez. He was sitting dead red there, and if you throw it to him, he may put another charge into one. So what do? You change up on him.
3-2. To the count to Manny Ramirez. Ramirez hit a double his first time, and hit one on the ground for an out his last time, and he walks this time.
And when you get behind Ramirez, as you do with Jason Giambi, you become very careful. And you should be that way because, I mean, you can give up a home run just as easily as you can give up a single.
But I just had this feeling that he wasn't concerned about Offerman hitting a home run.
Well, and that happens, John. I mean, it really does. I mean, you underestimate some of the other guys while you're concentrating on the big 3 and 4 hitters.
Here's Troy O'Leary. 1 ball and no strikes. 3-0 Boston jumping ahead here in the 5th inning. It all started on a single by Chris Steins. He stole a bag, then Lansing walked. And then Offerman launched a 3-run homer. A little bit down and away. 2 balls, no strike down. Hernandez is going to go out and talk to Cory Lidle here. This Coliseum, the dimensions are a little more friendly than they used to be, Joe, in the days of Dave Stewart's version of the Oakland Athletics or Reggie Jackson's version of the Athletics. And that spot where he hit it, it's in right center field, but it's only 362 from home plate.
Yeah, well, it used to be a long way, plus the ball didn't carry as well. I think the ball carries better now that they've built the big center field.
You can finish.
All right. As you call it, Mount Davis.
No, hold on one second. Baseball Tonight, the most comprehensive show on television, weeknights at 10, midnight Eastern. And out here in the Pacific, that's 7 and 9. Check it out. I mean, if you're a baseball fan, it is must viewing. Baseball Tonight. Cory Lidle has thrown 23 of those pitches in this inning. 2-1 the count to O'Leary, who has walked and grounded out. That's a called strike on the outside. Now, see, if O'Leary hit that 3-run homer, I could see that. Right. I mean, he's got some pop. He's got some power. O'Leary had a couple of, but you know that Jose Offerman, he's a guy who sprays the ball around
normally, but he's trying to get back in the lineup on an everyday basis.
That one is clobbered deep right center field. That ball is a home run.
I was waiting to see if they were ever going to call it. It did hit above the yellow line.
The first base umpire, Jim Wolf, waited a while and then signaled home run. If you hit it above that scoreboard out there, that's a home run. It hit off the advertising panel. And O'Leary displays some of that pop, although just his 2nd home run of this season. Now this is truly a big inning. 5 runs in for the Red Sox.
You see the ball moves back out over the middle of the plate. And you watch it hit above the yellow line there. It hits the wall, the blue sign and above the yellow line, and that means it's a home run. And it disappears and then bounces back. There's a little platform there. And once it hits above the yellow line, it's a home run.
Rick Peterson out to talk to Lidle, who has gotten knocked around in this inning hard. 5 runs in for Boston. This is like the old-time Red Sox. A 3-run homer and a 2-run homer, like the days of George Boomer Scott, Jim Rice, Fred Lynn, Carl Yastrzemski, Carlton Fisk, the Sox of the 70s. 1 ball and no strikes, the count to Jason Varitek. Switch hitter, 0 for 2. He's grounded out twice. Lidle had him hitting the ball on the ground most of the time in the first 4 innings. But they have gotten the ball airborne a couple of times here. And again, I mean, that's a pretty friendly hitter's area out there where O'Leary hit that ball as well.
362, you're right. But it's the wall is pretty high, so it does offer some protection for the pitcher.
Jason Giambi picks it up. So when he gets the ground ball there, but not before the Red Sox hit 2 home runs in the inning. Jose Offerman, a 3-run shot. A 2-run homer for O'Leary. 5-0 Boston. Red Sox lead the Athletics now 5-0 back of Pedro Martinez, who explained to ESPN Radio's Charlie Steiner how he actually feels a burning sensation on his fingertips when he releases his fastball.
At the time I'm releasing the ball, I'm right out there, and my fingers are still like that. And the ball is off my hand like this, and my fingers are still there. And I still have You see the Carlos up there.
Right at the top.
They tip at the end, and see that nail breaks like right in the middle there.
Okay.
That's from the pressure I get on the ball at the time I release it, and I feel it just spin at the end, just spin it. I feel the burning every time.
You feel a burn?
Yes, especially when it's cold. It's really hard. It hurts a lot.
It hurts the hitters too, John.
Terrence Long drives one into right field, but right at the wall. Trot Nixon makes the catch, and Long is retired. In this ballpark, if you pull it, you don't necessarily get rewarded. If you hit it out into right center, it goes you go out more easily than where he just hit it.
Let's see, you can see the fingers on the ball. Now you can see the rotation there. Kind of side spin. He doesn't get on top of this one. You see, that's more of a 3/4 delivery, and you can see the spin on it.
It's interesting how he said when he throws that fastball, burning sensation, and it hurts. He said it hurts a lot. One down here is Jeremy Giambi. That's a strike. Now in Oakland, the straightaway right where Terrence Long just hit that ball, it's 367 feet. But to right center, it's 362 feet. Not many ballparks like that. They had to alter the dimensions in the outfield to accommodate the football seating out there that they erected. Jeremy Giambi singled his first time. And that's tap foul. Here's the look at the outfield. That's the big football seating area that was installed here.
Let's take a look at his fingers and see if you see a snap right there.
One ball and 2 strikes. And another foul back out of play. You know, Pedro made 6 starts this year, Joe. And this may be sort of a shock to him to have a 5-run lead. It's only the second time now. This is his 7th start. The second time in those 7 starts that the Red Sox have scored more than 3 runs while he's been on the mound. Outside with a slider. I mean, he's had 2 games that he left ahead that the bullpen lost for him. In fact, the Red Sox record in the games he has started before today was 3-3. First baseman Jose Offerman and Jeremy Giambi is gone. 2 down. So that is the entire lineup now that Martinez has retired in order since Giambi hit a single back in the 2nd inning.
John, I want to take a quick moment and send our condolences to the John Filippelli family. He's the executive producer of ABC Sports. He lost his father this morning, and John's a good friend of mine, and him and his wife Jenna. So I just want to send our condolences along to the Filippelli family.
And there's a ball too high to Miguel Tejada. Well, very sad to hear about that.
And I must say, Mike Weissman, a good friend of mine, called me to tell me, so I just want to thank him for informing me. And
it's a foul ball.
Well, the question is, did he swing at it anyway?
I mean, it looked like he swung at it.
Yeah. Let's take a look. Well, he was trying to check, I guess.
Looked like when it was too late, he was trying to get out of the way, wasn't he? 1 ball, 1 strike to Miguel Tejada. He popped out to second his first time. Oh. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
You can see that's the changeup. He chokes it. He throws that circle change, and you can see Tejada kind of wave at it, way out in front of it.
Oh, that was not the changeup. A 96-mile-an-hour heater. That is the 3rd strikeout for Pedro. He's on a roll. Red Sox lead 5-0.
ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Nextel, is brought to you by Bud Light. For the great taste that won't fill you up and never let you down, make it a Bud Light. And by Broadwing, the ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Nextel, is brought to you by Bud Light. For the great taste that won't fill you up and never let you down, make it a Bud Light. And by Broadwing, the world's first beautiful network.
Red Sox 5-0 over the Oakland Athletics as Shea Hillenbrand beats that one out. That ball almost hit him, but he's up there. That's his game. He swings at almost everything, and he gets an infield hit on that one. His first hit of the game.
Well, let's take a look at this pitch. Fastball runs off the plate inside, and he does fight it off, but he chops it down the third base line. And Chavez comes in and tries to make the play barehanded, but not in time. And, John, you mentioned these guys that swing a lot and do not get a lot of base on balls. That will catch up with you eventually.
Several impressive rookies
right
now.
Does it? He doesn't. Ichiro Suzuki, he swings at a lot of pitches. And, I mean, the point is, pretty soon these pitchers will say, well, we don't have to throw them a strike. So they'll throw pitches, and then you swing at a lot of bad pitches, and you're going to get yourself out.
Well, the two guys, the rookies who are up there really hacking, Alfonso Soriano with the Yankees. They do the action from Mashcam there. It's tough right now. You got the bright background. The pitcher and the batter both in the shadows. With the batter, Chris Stein's looking into that bright background behind the pitcher.
I actually think it's easier now than it was before, John, because you have a little more time to see it as a dark spear coming at you, whereas before it was bright, and then dark for just a short period of time.
Runner going, and that ball is driven foul down the left field line by Steins. Hillenbrand will have to go back to first.
Into the running Red Sox.
The running Red Sox. But Alfonso Soriano has one walk in 125 plate appearances this year, and now Shea Hillenbrand has one walk in 124 plate appearances. Ichiro, at the start of the day, had 4 walks in 142 plate appearances. There's Hillenbrand, which is also a little bit unusual because he's the leadoff man.
Right.
The Mariners, although I don't hear any complaints up there. He came into the day hitting .350.
Well, he gets on base and he excites the crowd. I mean, he's an excitable player. He's a very interesting player to watch.
Now there's Albert Pujols. We saw him when we were in Houston recently. In St. Louis, he looks like the real deal.
He excites him by hitting it over the wall.
He got 361 average, 9 home runs. That's a foul. I mean, he seems like he does something big every day, it seems like. Today, he was 1 for 3 with a 2-run homer against Kevin Millwood in Atlanta. The guy can hit. It's Pedro Martinez. Of course, he hadn't had to face Pedro. Seattle's got a young infielder by the name of David Eckstein hitting .321. Kansas City's got young D. Brown hitting .316. The thing about Soriano, though, Joe, I mean, he goes up there hacking, but he's been getting on base. He's been hitting around 300. And he has 11 steals, second in the American League in stolen bases. And that Yankee team is running all the time. They have 42 stolen bases now in what, I guess, 32 games they've played.
I still believe the success that Joe Torre had at the beginning, you know, he brought a little National League style of baseball to the American League, and I think it took him a while to adjust to the Yankees.
Knocked down. I remember when he first got over there, he had him doing a lot right.
He'd hit and run, he'd bunt, he'd steal bases. I mean, he did a lot of things to force the action. He didn't just sit there and wait for the 3-run homer, as a lot of teams were doing in the American League and have done for a long time.
Art Howe?
Well, he played in the National League. He was a teammate of mine, and Art used to like to hit and run.
You mean he was a good hit and run man?
Yes, when I hit in front of him, he liked to put me in motion. and open up a hole for him.
Well, you had stopped stealing it by that time?
No, but I mean, I wanted to help him out. Hey, I wanted to help him. I could steal the base, but I mean, I'd get him a base hit, and I could go to third. See, we could go first to third on his single.
He could still steal the base if he wanted to.
He was trying to help Art out. 3-2 the count to Chris Steins. Runner at first, and he's going. Steins fouls it back to the screen. The Oakland bullpen is busy, as Hillenbrand will again have to turn around and go back to first.
There is Mike Magnante, a left-hander, up in the Athletics bullpen.
A 5-run fifth inning for Boston, turning this game around. All of a sudden, Joe, that Eastern Division, and the Red Sox and Toronto both got off to hot starts. The Yankees were kind of fumbling around a little bit, but now they have gotten hot. They just went into Baltimore and swept a 4-game weekend series from the Orioles. The Yankees are 19-13. Toronto 19-12. Boston 18-12. Runner going. That ball is driven deep and foul.
Steins continues to battle it out here with Lidle.
Just an impressive foul. 3-2 the count. But the Red Sox,
as the season began, you kind of thought it seemed like there were a lot of turmoil coming out of spring training. Ramirez and Everett, and everybody seemed to be at odds about something. They lost their star, Garcia Parra. They wondered after Pedro who was going to do the pitching, and then they came out right away. They were hot, and they hurt the Yankees several times early on. And instead of just holding their own until Nomar got back, it was the Yankees that looked for a while like they would have to worry about getting buried early. But now the Yankees have come on. There goes the runner. Into the hole, Tejada. Here's his long throw. Just in time to get Steins.
On this ground ball, Tejada stops himself. He sets himself right there so he could keep going. But he sets himself to try to make the throw, stop it, and throw to first base. He bobbles it, but he has such a strong arm and a quick release that he's able to extend and fire it across the diamond and still get Steins at first base.
One down, runner at second. And Mike Lansing will come up, the 9th place hitter. He walked in that 5th inning rally. Red Sox put 5 on the board in the 5th, and they lead 5-0.
That's a called strike. Now, Lansing is another one of those veteran players
who's been a regular player who is playing only part-time. Dante Bichette is another. You mentioned him, Joe, earlier. And it does seem like there's a lot of guys in the Red Sox who have a gripe about something.
Yeah. Well, a lot of guys have put up impressive numbers in their career, and they feel like they should be playing.
Dante Bichette at one point said he would like to be traded
to a ball club where he could play regularly. He's only had 39 at-bats.
1 strike to count to Mike Lansing. Runner at second. Too far in from Cory Lidle. 1 ball, 1 strike. It's the Boston pitching that seems to be the whole foundation. There's Joe Kerrigan, the pitching coach. If they finish with the best ERA in the league again this year, that'll be 3 straight years. They don't give up many homers. They don't give up many hits, these pitchers on the Red Sox. And that's not just Pedro. I mean, the last couple of years you could have said, well, without Pedro, they're in the middle in pitching or even worse than that, but not this year.
Well, Hideo Nomo has helped him. I mean, he pitched a no-hitter or 1-hitter, and I had the game in Seattle Wednesday, and he pitched very well there, but he just happened to have the wrong guy up there every time, Pedro Martinez, and he drove in 3 runs.
Those are his numbers last year, pitching for Detroit. And that didn't even tell the half of it, his numbers this year. He's pitched 36 innings, and he's given up 15 hits. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, his batting average, opponent's batting average was better than Pedro's.
Caught at third, and Chavez to second, and Aquino gets the double play. That's the inning.
Pedro to head back out with a 5-0 lead.
Discover the
an outstanding pitcher, Mike Messina, back in Baltimore. Give the Yankees a sweep over the Orioles. We're watching the Yankees' arch enemy, the Boston Red Sox, and Pedro Martinez. And he is shutting out the Athletics. Eric Chavez, the hitter. Right center field. On the run, Trot Nixon can't get to it. Up against the wall. Chavez digging for second. The ball is finally retrieved by Everett, and he throws wildly, and into third base goes Chavez. First off, Nixon fell over out there, and then Everett backed him up on the play, and he spun and may have stumbled himself as he made the throw, which went into left field instead of third base.
Well, this is a similar situation of Manny Ramirez's ball. He was stopping at second base, and he saw the throw was way off line, and he continued over to third. So that should be a double and an error, but we'll see how they score it. Pedro trying to get ahead in the count gives Chavez a fastball down and away, and he ripped it in the right center.
Now here is Ramon Hernandez. The slider misses, a little high, perhaps. 1 ball and no strikes. Only the third hit for the A's, and it ends a stretch of 10 consecutive hitters having been retired by Pedro Martinez.
I don't know. I guess they're scoring at a triple.
Well, we haven't heard. I think they haven't announced yet.
I think you have to throw a ball somewhere near the base sometimes. I mean, or you get an error. I mean, that ball's. Let's see, he's stopping at second base. Now the throw is so far off that he takes off at third. That is a double and an error. But it's the same thing that happened to Ramirez that they scored as a double. He stopped at first base. The throw was so far off line.
He took off again. Blew it past Hernandez. Ball, and it will be a double and an error charge to center fielder Carl Everett.
I'd like to know the difference between that ball, that play, and the one that Ramirez made.
Same play.
Well, on Ramirez, at least, the play was at second base
and on the infield, and the ball did go to the infield. This play was at third base on the infield, but the ball went to left field. Yeah.
They were both so far off line that it was, you know.
I really thought I'm giving Manny a double though, because I just thought he made it happen with good heads-up baseball. A lot of guys wouldn't have surmised that, even though the throw was offline.
No, I mean, I agree with you with the heads-up base run play, but the throw allowed him to make the good play.
This one fielded by Pedro. And Oakland has a threat now. Runners at first and third with nobody out, and the top of the order coming up. Ramon Hernandez with the infield hit.
Well, this is interesting. The ball is chopped. I mean, no way that anyone can make a play on it. Pedro tries to
get Chavez at third, but Chavez knew exactly
what was going on.
Ron Washington, the third base coach over there. Perhaps urging him to stay put as Ramon Hernandez over at first with the infield single. Almost like Pedro was too good on that one for his own good. The ball was hit so poorly by Hernandez that he got a base hit on it. Now Johnny Damon. Damon, the leadoff man, has had more at-bats with men in scoring position for Oakland this year than has Jason Giambi. That's a double play ball. They get one there, back to first. Double play, even against the fleet-footed Johnny Damon. And that has been the story of the Athletic season. That is the 34th ground ball double play into which they've hit. Every time they've had any kind of an opportunity tonight, they've hit the double play.
Well, this ball is hit so hard, and it's close to second base. For a guy like Damon, who runs very fast, to be doubled up, the ball, they have to have a short throw in there someplace. And here's the short throw, just a little flip to second base. Now the long throw by Lansing, and they still get him. But if you have two long throws, there's no way you can double up a guy like Damon.
So it is 5-1. They get a run on that. Menachino the hitter, but any visions of a serious inning against Pedro pretty well evaporate.
And if you're the Oakland A's, you say, well, he hit the ball hard, which he did, and if he pulls it a little bit, you know, this inning is still alive. But
that's what happens when you're facing a good pitcher like Pedro.
Menachino 1 ball, 1 strike. He is popped out, flied out to shallow left center where O'Leary made a diving catch. The Athletics have just had this horrible propensity for hitting the double play ball, Joe. The last time we were here 3 weeks ago, they ended the game hitting a double play ball.
1-2 the count. Well, you have to remember last year Ben Grieve hitting a lot of double plays. He's no longer here. But this is not a speedy team. So if you hit the ball sharply on the ground, you're going to hit into a lot of double plays. I mean, if you look through the lineup, Damon and Terrence Long are basically, and Tejada, I guess, are basically the only ones that have the speed to stay out of double plays.
1-2 the count. 2-2 now. Just by comparison, the Red Sox have grounded into 20 double plays. They're not what you call a speedy team. They've grounded into 20. The A's have now grounded into 34. Jimmy Williams, the Boston manager. Plus, the Athletics are only hitting .213 with runners in scoring position as a team. I mean, they get somebody in scoring position, and they go into a slump. Lead the American League in grounding into double plays. Perplexing early season for the Athletics. And the strikeout, Menachino gone on a fastball. Jason Giambi stranded on deck. We're going to the 7th inning, the top of the order with the Red Sox. 5-1 Boston. Game track, Red Sox leading 5-1. Pedro Martinez, 4 strikeouts through the first 6 innings. Jose Offerman, a rare home run, a 3-run shot to start the scoring in the 5th inning. And then later in the same inning, Troy O'Leary. Goodbye, a 2-run shot and a 5-run inning. And it is 5-1 now. Boston leading as we start the 7th. The new pitchers come on for Oakland, throwing a called strike to Trot Nixon. It is Mike McNante. Excuse me, Joe. I went into a little sneezing fit there. A ball hit fouled on the right field line by Nixon. Over 40,000. The official paid crowd tonight and a walk-up of more than 12,000 fans here, Joe. And I'd say the very nice weather played a role, but Pedro Martinez had to be a big part of the draw as Nixon is out on strikes. He is 0 for 4 tonight. He's a part of the big crowd as the afternoon shadows now covering almost all of the playing field. There is Pedro Martinez, who has now gone 6 innings. The 1 run allowed will be scored as an earned run despite that throwing error to Carl Everett. Here is Jose Offerman. And he's got a base hit batting right-handed. Oh, I get it, Joe. Batting left-handed, he's got the power. Right-handed, he's a singles hitter. That's all coming into focus now. And he hits a home run tonight on May the 6th, which is the birthday of a guy who hit 660 home runs, the great Willie Mays. Happy birthday, number 70 for Willie Mays. And he can do it all, Joe, offensively and defensively. Perhaps the most famous catch of all time right there. And across the bay from here at Pacific Bellpark, where they have a statue of Willie Mays, they are commemorating and wishing Willie a happy 70th. That's a base hit to left field for Carl Everett, also switching around to bat right-handed. His first hit of the game. So they have set the stage, an RBI opportunity for the great RBI man, Manny Ramirez, coming up. And Art Howe has a right-hander warming up in his bullpen. So we'll see if he wants to make a move here or not. There's Jim Messier, number 45, warming up in the Oakland bullpen. Now, McNante against Ramirez, that is not a good matchup for the Athletics. Manny is 6 for 8 lifetime against McNante. So what do you think? Are they stalling for time here to get Messier ready? Look what he's hitting against lefties just in general this year.
Yeah. Well, left-handers really can't get inside on him, and that's the only place you can even bother him is Art Howe comes out, and that's going to do it. They were just waiting to give Monsieur a chance to warm up.
So this is not one of the biggest shocks of all time. A pitcher against whom Ramirez was hitting 750, against lefties hitting 516. They'll go to somebody else, a right-hander. We'll be back. There's Jim Messier, a right-hander, in from the Oakland bullpen. Messier, who lost 4 games early on this year, but has been pitching very well lately, and he'll need to pitch well right now because he's got 2 base runners. Offerman at second, Everett at first, and the best RBI man in the game, Manny Ramirez, at the plate. Ramirez 1 for 2 with a walk in this game, and a foul ball.
And you can see exactly where they try to pitch him. If you're right-handed, you try to get in on him, keep him from extending out over the plate, because you get the ball out over the plate, he can go to left field, right field, or straight away.
And Manny has had 42 at-bats with men in scoring position this year. So they've been getting men on for him. That's half the battle. If you're an RBI man, you have to have somebody to drive in, and then he takes care of it from there.
It was like last year in Cleveland when they had Lofton, Vizquel, and Alomar in front of him.
And Juan Gonzalez is taking advantage of that.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah, inside, you see him. He's hit his 2 balls off his body.
0-2. By the way, Juan Gonzalez and Manny Ramirez tied for the league lead in RBIs. We get a look at it from Mass Cam. Off the foot. Ouch. This is the 998th game in Manny Ramirez's career. He has 838 RBIs. Juan Gonzalez in his first 1,000 games had 852. So, I mean, Manny's been extraordinary, but Juan Gonzalez does not pale in comparison, that's for sure. Up and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Plus, Gonzalez is at about 370 for Cleveland. And they say he's just playing a sensational right field as well. There is Offerman and Everett. Everett's been on base 3 times tonight. Manny Ramirez, the league's leading hitter. Tonight he is 1 for 2 with a walk. He is hitting .408. Blew it by him. Strike 3.
Well, it was good pitching there by Messier. What he did is he threw 2 fastballs in, and once he fouled off his foot, he went back inside, and that's where you want to do. You got to try to tie him up, but it doesn't work all the time. You see the target inside. That's really gets a lot of the plate there. So he just actually throws this ball by Manny. It's not inside where it was supposed to be.
He got away with something there. There is a swinging strike 1 by Troy O'Leary on the off-speed pitch. O'Leary has walked, grounded out, and he has hit a 2-run homer. Red Sox lead 5-1. 2 on, 2 out. Jim Messier doing a great job to get Ramirez. Strike caught on the outside, and quickly O'Leary is in a hole. 0-2 to Messier. Oakland will have Jason Giambi leading it off in the last of the 7th. Messier tries to end this inning. In the dirt, Hernandez has to chase the ball and then throw him out. That's the inning. 2 hits, 2 left. Now, it'll be Jason Giambi, Olmedo Signs, and Terrence Long, the 3-4-5 hitters. Oakland is trailing 5-1.
ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Nextel, how business gets done. And in part by the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. Las Vegas, what you want, when you want it.
John Miller and Joe Morgan here with you, your Sunday night telecasters. And here's the Cy Young Award winner against the MVP. And Giambi, first ball swinging against Pedro, is an easy out on a pop fly into shallow center, caught by Carl Everett.
And you can see exactly how Pedro has pitched him the entire ballgame. His fastball is in tight. He tries to keep it in on the hands of Giambi. See the target right there on the inside corner. And that's where he gets it. And Giambi can't quite get to that pitch.
Pedro Martinez. Now, coming into this game in 43 innings pitched, he had 66 strikeouts, which is remarkable. Here's Olmedo Signs.
But
There's ball one, but he only has 4 strikeouts tonight in 6 1/3 innings.
And I think it's, again, John, I don't think he has quite the movement on his fastball that he normally has. He's got good velocity, but not quite the movement.
Olmedo Signs has struck out twice. There's that changeup in there for a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. Well, I mean, just a lot of guys change it. We see it because we see the radar gun on every pitch, Joe, but nobody really has the difference from their fastball to their changeup that Pedro does. I mean, there's a fastball at 93, but he'll throw that changeup at 76.
Well, the only thing I say about that, John, is usually the more effective changeup is like 10 or 12 miles off your fastball. He has such good arm speed that he just fools you completely with it. I mean, normally you would, if a guy threw 95, you'd want his changeup to be around 80, you know, at the most. But when you throw a real slow changeup, sometimes you can step out there and then recheck yourself and swing at it. But his arm speed is so good that it doesn't seem like anyone can do that.
Well, Giambi says even when he looks changeup on Pedro, which isn't often, there's a curve for strike 3. He still gets out in front of it because it's so slow and it has movement. And we take a look at here. This is not the changeup. This is a breaking ball.
Yeah, this is a slider that he starts on the inside part of the plate. It's a hard slider. Signs gives up on it, and it catches the inside corner.
Nice pitch. 2 down, nobody on. Olmedo Signs, hitting behind Jason Giambi, has struck out all 3 times tonight. And here is Terrence Long. Long has grounded out, fly deep to right. And the breaking ball for a called strike.
Well, the way that Pedro has pitched Giambi tonight, I don't think it would have mattered who was hitting behind him. But normally, you know, Terrence Long has hit behind him, but I think Art Howe was playing a hunch. He put Olmedo Signs there for tonight's ball game, and again, he has struck out 3 times, but Pedro has been able to make great pitches on him.
0-2 the count to Long. The 2 through 5 place hitters, Aquino, Jason Giambi, Signs, and Long. Those are the guys that you count on to really do some damage. Pedro has got them 0 for 11. None of those 4's even been on base. And Aquino, Jason Giambi, Signs, each 0 for 3. And Long 0 for 2. And down in an 0-2 hole right here. The Boston bullpen is busy for the first time tonight. Although you see Rolando Araujo, longtime starting pitcher in Cuba and then here, but now he's a late inning reliever for the Red Sox and has done a great job in that new role. 0-2 the count. And that's a foul.
Well, I think until Derek Lowe gets straightened out at least, it's going to be Rod Beck and Araujo closing those ball games for the Red Sox. Lowe has gotten off to a very poor start, and this is the second time this season they have actually taken him, you know, out of the closer role. There's Rod Beck.
Shooter. Oh, man. Ended up over his head, strike 3, and Pedro, if in fact that was his final inning, finishes up strongly. His 6th strikeout of the night. He's leading 5-1. Sunday Night Baseball presented by Nextel. 5-1 Boston over the Athletics as we start the 8th inning, and a changeup from Jim Messier up and away to Jason Varitek, who is 0 for 3. He'll be followed by Hillenbrand and then Steins, the 6, 7, 8 spots in the Sox batting order. Another changeup, this one for a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. Pedro Martinez striking out 2 to end the 7th inning, and then walking off the mound and shaking hands with Joe Kerrigan and then Tommy Harper. This one down the right field line and in there, base hit, cut off by Jeremy Giambi. Digging for 2 is Varitek. The throw cut off by Menachino. It is a double for Jason Varitek. Showed some pretty good wheels for a catcher.
John, I saw something interesting when we showed Pedro going into the dugout. If we can show it again, I think you'll see. Now watch Kerrigan's lips. He's going to ask him, you had enough? So he says, you had enough? He says, yes. And then he tells he basically tells Arroyo, you're going in. But he asked Pedro before, which I think is good. Pedro knows more about how he feels out there than anyone else.
Here is Hillenbrand. That is a strike. Hillenbrand 1 for 3, got an infield hit in the 6th inning. And that was so cool, Joe. I'm sitting there wanting to see who he's shaking hands with next, and I'm identifying Tommy Harper. And you're seeing through all that. You're seeing stuff that was invisible. You're like a CIA analyst.
You know what happened? And I'll tell you why I did that and why I always do that. When I was playing for the Reds, Sparky Anderson and Tom Seaver, the great Tom Seaver, you know, Sparky would walk out to the mound, and if Seaver had enough, he'd give Sparky the ball. Sparky wouldn't take him out. You know, he wanted to stay with Seaver as long as Seaver wanted to be out there, but Seaver was a smart pitcher. He knew when he'd had enough, and that's honesty and trust between your pitching coach or your manager and the pitcher. And you have to have that trust to do a good job. And Kerrigan and Martinez have great trust between them. Kerrigan knows he can trust Martinez to say, yes, I've had enough, or no, I haven't. And that's the same way it was with Sparky Anderson and Tom Seaver. He knew that Tom wouldn't lie to him. If he felt like he could get the next hitter out, he'd stay out there. If he didn't, he'd come out. And I think that's what's great about great pitchers. They always know they take the ego out of it.
That was our GMC Envoy pitching summary. The ground ball by Hillenbrand. He was thrown out by Chavez, who first froze Veritek at second base. So there was one out. Veritek still out there at second. The batter will be Chris Steins. Hey, by the way, you know, not only do I appreciate your ability as an analyst, and also, I mean, I think we as Americans, maybe could use you in the CIA or getting those little secrets from other governments. I did check out ESPN.com.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. About, this was from Friday.
Correct.
And Mays was everything. And you talked about you played it with and against, and you watched guys like Aaron and Ernie Banks, Frank Robinson, Roberto Clemente in their prime years. But there was no one better than Willie Mays.
Well, I like the way you said he's the best there ever was, and I agree with that. And that was supposed to be in there. It's not there. I checked it. I wanted to say John Miller always says that he's the best there ever was.
You mean the
I
editors,
told you I was going to mention your name.
The editors of ESPN.com edited my name out? Forget I ever mentioned it. No, but it was a real nice column about Willie Mays, whose birthday is today, 70 years old today. Chris Steins, and the count goes to 1-1.
And that's why we wrote the column. Actually, David Kuhl and we wrote the column about Willie Mays because it was his birthday, and he is, you know, I think he's the greatest player of all time, personally.
The godfather of Barry Bonds.
He's a pretty good player, too.
Now, you know, Barry was pretty extraordinary when he hit his 500th home run. I mean, it was just a bolt of lightning right out of Pacific Bell Park, just across the bay from here into the bay. The very next night, Barry hit number 501. Not many of those 500 home run hitters did it that way. But Willie Mays did. He hit number 500, and I believe you were there, Joe.
More than likely, I was there.
He did it
against Houston.
No swing. He did it against Houston. And then the next night, he hit number 501. And you write about that in your article.
Correct.
He hit it against Claude Ramon. This was in a pennant race in September. And Willie Mays, with his club down by a couple of runs, man on base, went to 3-2, and then fouled off 4 pitches in a row.
Great.
And not only did he hit a home run, he hit it 450 feet. And I played the broadcast from Russ Hodges, the Giants Hall of Fame broadcaster, who said at the time, one of the longest home runs he'd ever seen. And it tied that game, and they won it in the next inning in a big game in a pennant race. But you write about how you saw that he was trying to do that.
He was.
That is that. That's Tejada. And Steins is gone. 2 down. I mean, you've not often seen guys in a big spot against a good pitcher trying to hit a homer and then do it.
Well, I still tell people it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen, you know, on the field. And I've seen a lot of great things. I've seen other players hit home runs in certain clutch situations, but that, to me, in the heat of the pennant race, was the most extraordinary thing I'd ever seen. I mean, he was trying to hit a home run. The reason I say he was because he was falling down on every swing. He wasn't trying to go the other way. He was trying to hit it out of the ballpark, and Claude Ramon was the pitcher, and he never gave in. He kept throwing it harder and harder, and they kept swinging. Mays was swinging harder, and finally, I mean, I just couldn't believe it when he hit the home run. As he tried to pass me at second base, I wanted to reach out and shake his hand, but I knew I better not.
Mike Lansing, the hitter, 0-1 the count. Runner at second. Veritek. Boston ahead 5-1. We're in the 8th inning. Nasir. And that misses on the inside. 2-1. Well, it's his birthday today, but they had a great birthday gala for Willie Mays in Atlantic City over the weekend. And Willie McCovey, Hank Aaron were there. I think about 40 friends. And
they just invited the guys to have 500 home runs.
Well, they said they might as well have had the game, the birthday party at Cooperstown.
Right.
It was a pretty star-studded occasion for Willie Mays.
Well, it is, and Willie was very appreciative. I read some comments he made. He said he was just so happy that all the guys felt, you know, they would want to come and honor him and celebrate his birthday. So, and rightfully so. I mean, he's a special guy.
Now,
and you know, John, when I see him, you say he's 70 years old. I cannot, in my mind, think of Willie Mays as 70 years old. I still see the same guy running in center field, making basket catches and doing all the things that he did. I still think of him that way. And truthfully, I still get goose pimples when he walks into a room because, you know, I grew up here watching him play.
Same with me. Strike 3 in the inside to Lansing. Leadoff double, but Veritek stranded. We go to the last of the 8th. Jeremy Giambi coming up, 5-1 Red Sox.
Shining star, no matter who you are. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
Yeah, Pedro was outstanding again tonight. And on SportsCenter, coming up after the ball game, the Sunday Conversation. Pedro Martinez did visit with Charlie Steiner and Patrick Stewart Scott. And that will be part of SportsCenter coming up after the game. Jeremy Giambi facing the new Boston pitcher, Rolando Araujo, the Cuban emigre. And a foul out of play. 0-2 to count. Giambi 1 for 2. He had one of 4 hits that the Athletics were able to get. And look at these numbers by Araujo, Joe. 16 in the 3rd innings. And there's not a lot of run earned or otherwise.
Well, I find it interesting because he closed their last ball game for Pedro. And I thought that maybe he was going to be the guy they use as the closer for a while. But, he's going to pitch 2 innings here if they leave him in. And that's kind of interesting. I thought they would save him maybe just for the 9th inning.
And back to the screen. Well, they don't have a game tomorrow. And Araujo did not have to work much yesterday, so there he is. And Pedro only threw 92 pitches tonight. He only faced 23 hitters in 7 innings. That's only 2 above the minimum. But he did have the 136 pitches the last time out, and they do not want to ever take chances. As you see, Araujo's got a little extra pop on his fastball.
See, there's a lot of movement there, and I think that's why he will be successful in a closer's role, because he has that extra hop on his fastball.
3-2 the count. That is a broken bat foul. 3-2. But you know, last Tuesday, Joe, Pedro's last start up in Seattle, there was a controversial group of circumstances where Pedro hit Edgar Martinez, but he hit him with a curveball. And here's the play we're talking about. But Joe Brinkman, the home plate umpire, issued Pedro a warning. Pedro was sort of a wry smile afterward, or a sarcastic smile. And he told him, he said, hey, before you say anything, this is Pedro's story. He says, that was a breaking ball. That was a curveball.
Well, you could see it wasn't his fastball. So, but then Edgar kind of leaned over.
It was clocked at 77 miles an hour.
Well, he was fooled by it, and he kind of leaned over the plate, and he got hit. But I mean, I guess reputation sometimes causes umpires to react the way they do. And
well, Pedro was very upset after the game because he said, number one, now I've been warned. Does that mean if I throw another curveball and hit another guy, I'm tossed out of the game?
And he was very concerned about that. The Red Sox have contacted the commissioner's office to try and clarify what the actual rule is, because I think they wanted to know if intent was actually part of the decision. But Pedro did talk to Charlie Steiner about that incident, and he told us his side of what happened.
So he came over and he said, because you hit him in the head, I want to issue a warning. And I said, wait. Before you do it, let me just let you know that it was a breaking ball. He goes, I know. Didn't want to let me talk. Yes, I know. But because you hit him in the head, you understand that, because the ball hit him in the head. And that's what Major League Baseball wants us to do. I'm going to have to issue a warning. I said, but that's ridiculous. It's just, it was a breaking ball. There's no intent. That's my friend.
All right, and that's part of the Sunday night conversation that will come up next on the Sports Center with Charlie Steiner. But,
well, I agree with Pedro. If you get hit with a breaking ball, I mean, obviously, like he said, there was no intent. But then again, like I said, it's kind of perception. There's a lot of people thinking that Pedro pitches inside too often, or that he will pitch inside. But that's why he's successful. He will pitch inside. He uses both sides of the plate.
But I think it's also a very real concern if you get warned when you hit somebody with a curveball that got away. And Joe Garrigan said it was his very first curveball of the night. Chavez drives one into the alleyway, right center field. Tejada run to the bases. He was hit by the pitch.
He's heading home, and he is going to score.
A double by Chavez, his second consecutive double. And now it is 5-2 Boston.
And that also gives Arroyo an earned run average now.
The first run allowed by Arroyo this year.
Well, Chavez has proven that he can hit anybody's low fastball, and that's what he does here. And the same thing with Pedro.
And maybe this is what it takes to get him started. Some pitchers who come right after him and are aggressive, and he can go ahead and let it go. But because he's had trouble with off-speed pitches and chasing pitches out of the strike zone, he's been striking out a lot. But today, Pedro's not afraid to throw him his fastball, and neither was Arroyo, and he's been able to attack.
Well, Chavez had 3 hits here in Oakland's win Friday night.
Now, this is interesting. I mean, that Boston bullpen, as you see, Rich Garcia is starting to warm up now for the Red Sox. You take Pedro out when he's only thrown 92 pitches. He's only faced 2 batters over the minimum through 7. There's Rod Beck, another guy who would be available here late in the game. What if the bullpen just doesn't quite have it on this night? I mean, that ends up looking pretty bad. You take Pedro out early.
Well, it goes back to what you were talking about when you were talking about Koufax and the pitchers, you know, Marichal and Gibson. They usually finished the ball game when they got to this point. It was a whole different, the game was different then, you know. It is what it is now, and it was what it was then. That's the way the game was played then. Those guys went out there and tried to finish the ball game. But in today's game, you have closers, you have late inning relievers, and you just try to get your starter to go a certain number of innings.
Plus, with the day off tomorrow, Pedro gets an extra day of rest before his next start.
Mario Valdez, the pinch hitter for Ramon Hernandez.
Runner at second, 1 out, 1 run in. It's 5-2, and if Valdez could knock Chavez home, the Athletics are right in this game at the top of the order coming up. And the crowd certainly has suddenly gotten back into it. There goes Chavez. The throw, not in time. He got a huge jump, and he steals the bag.
And that's a very, very smart play there, John.
And this is something that the A's have not been doing. But I could see him.
Watch, he's inching off. He never stopped him. So it's very easy for him to steal third base if you don't stop him. Even with a left-handed hitter up there, the catcher has a clean shot at third with a left-handed hitter. So you have to make sure that you have a great jump. And he did have a great jump.
So now they could get a run home with a ground ball in the infield. The infield stays back normal depth. Boston leads by 3. That's foul by Valdez.
And that's
ball to the strike.
And that's why you steal third, John, so that you can score on a ground ball or a fly ball. You do not have to get all the runs back here in the 8th inning. You just try to get as many as you can and give yourself a shot in the 9th inning.
Chavez at third.
One out, one in. It started with a hit batsman. Tejada got hit by Arrojo. And that one almost hit Valdez. Well, now the count is 3-1. Oakland has not done well overall with its pinch hitting, but Valdez has been the best. 2 for 7 as a pinch hitter. The Athletics trying to show some of that magic, which vaulted them to the top of the American League West not so long ago. To the outside. Nice pitch, 3-2 now. One thing Oakland has not done very often this year, that's string together hits to put together a rally. There's Johnny Damon on deck, another left-handed hitter. Crowd of better than 40,000 tonight, trying to inspire the Athletics. That's foul out of play, coming right after him with the hard stuff.
Well, Arrojo is throwing well. The ball is moving. He threw a low fastball to a low fastball hitter, and that's why he got in trouble actually in this inning. After he hit Tejada, but the low fastball to Chavez, and that got him in trouble. But he's just a low fastball hitter anyway.
3-2 the count. Mario Valdez, the pinch hitter. Chavez in third. And he fights off another one. Well, this is not finesse baseball right here.
No. Well, this is what you like. I mean, this is, you know, Arrojo saying, I'm going to give you my best fastball, see if you can catch up with it.
Arrojo hits a batter for the first time this year. Tejada, that's how it got started. And that first hit batsman became the first run that he had allowed. That will get the run home, although the Red Sox get the out. Chavez in to score, and it is 5-3. An RBI for Valdez. It was a trade the Red Sox were willing to make. And now with Johnny Damon coming up, that is going to do it for Rolando Arrojo as Jimmy Williams comes out and signals for Rich Garces from the bullpen. 2 down, nobody on. 2 in. Red Sox 5-3, and we'll be right back with Damon coming up. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball presented by Nextel. Red Sox 5, Athletics 3. Last of the 8th. 2 down, nobody on. Rich Garces on to face Johnny Damon before more than 40,000 at the Network Associates Coliseum on the eastern shore of the San Francisco Bay. Garces to Damon. Outside for ball 1. Damon 1 for 3. And this is the time that the Athletics need the igniter at the top of the order to ignite something. And that slider is a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike.
And John, this is a situation people may ask, why would he take Pedro out when he'd only thrown 92 pitches? And they have blown 2 games that he left in the lead. Why would you take him out?
Sharply hit the first, but picked by Offerman, and that ends the inning.
I'll explain that later.
All right. I'm eagerly anticipating it. We head to the 9th inning. Top of the order coming up. ESPN Game Track. Pedro Martinez, 7 innings. He faced only 2 batters over the minimum. Then Jose Offerman broke a scoreless tie in the 5th with a 3-run homer. Eric Chavez, a couple of doubles. 1 against Pedro, and that turned into a run, and then 1 to fuel a rally in the 8th inning against the bullpen at Boston. Now we go to the 9th inning. It is 5-3. The Athletics still with visions of a comeback. Meanwhile, after the ball game, stay tuned for Sports Center. Dan Patrick and Stuart Scott included in the program the Sunday conversation with Pedro Martinez. Shack Attack, the plays of the week. And that'll be followed by Baseball Tonight at midnight Eastern Time. For the Athletics, their closer, Jason Isringhausen, comes on, and that's the new catcher also has come on. Sal Fasano. Isringhausen has pitched well, but he hadn't had that many games to save so far. Fasano now catching, hitting in the leadoff spot. Johnny Damon is out of the game. Mario Valdez stays in the game to play left field. Oakland going with only a 4-man bench, so they don't have a whole lot of maneuverability out there. This ball went up and away. And the Red Sox leadoff hitter, Trot Nixon, who is 0 for 4. So, Joe, you were talking about...
Oh, Pedro and why they took him out.
Yeah. That one is hit high in the air to right field, but off the end of the bat. And Jeremy Giambi, plenty of room, one away. 0 for 5
well,
Nixon.
I think what happened is, you know, he threw 130-plus pitches last time.
Yeah,
and they decided that, you know, they wanted to try and give him a little bit more time to regroup. But Pedro's also a guy that they know that they're going to need him down the stretch. And the fewer pitches you throw in May, Jimmy Williams and a lot of other managers think the better off you'll be in September under the pressure of a pennant race. So you try to save your starters as many pitches as you possibly can.
Here's Offerman. And hey, with this bullpen, it's almost like he has that luxury that this bullpen is strong.
But they haven't been that strong for Pedro. I think that's the point. As you mentioned, he left leading in 2 ball games that they ultimately lost.
Yeah. Here's Jimmy Williams, the beleaguered manager of the Red Sox. Offerman has his 3rd hit of the game. Big turn at first, but the speedy Offerman, but Terrence Long got that ball back in quickly to hold him at first base. Tommy Harper over to congratulate Offerman, who's having a pretty good night, 3 for 5.
Well, you have to give Offerman a lot of credit because, you know, he's been trying to get back in the lineup on an everyday basis, and tonight's ball game should help him. This is his 3rd hit of the ball game, 2 left-handed and 1 right-handed. Good job by Terrence Long to cut this ball off. Now, see, this way he's throwing right back to where he's facing. The other time he was running in the left center, he's going to have to whirl and throw. So smart move there by Offerman not to try it.
But now he might try to steal it. Although he has not stolen a base this year.
But he's capable.
Last year he was injured most of the year and only stole 1 base. Carl Everett. And Isringhausen misses with the hanging curveball up and away. The Offerman last year, in fact, I correct myself, Joe, he never stole a base last year and got thrown out 8 times.
Well, he had a bad knee and he wasn't running well last year, but he is definitely capable of stealing bases.
Inside, he stole 18 his first year with the Red Sox, 1999, and 45 the year before. Rich Garces. And there's no activity in the Boston bullpen, so it apparently will be Garces to face Frank Menachino, Jason Giambi, and Olmedo Saenz when Oakland comes up in the last of the ninth. Offerman a very short lead at first base.
Well, it's like he knew he was coming over there for some reason then because he had a bigger lead before. But Isringhausen is like most closers. They do not hold runners really well at first base.
He's got a big leg kick.
Yeah, so they don't. That's most closers are like that.
Carl Everett 1 for 2. Been on base 3 times. Back to the screen. 2 balls and a strike. Isringhausen is another Oakland player who can be a free agent at the end of the year. Johnny Damon is one. Jason Giambi is one. And that has been coupled with Oakland's very slow start as prompting a lot of speculation around the country about whether these guys, some of them or all of them, could end up being traded if Oakland continues to stumble on into the summer. Carl Everett trying to make something happen. Manny Ramirez is on deck. The outside corner 2-2. You got pretty good matchups here. Ordinarily, Isringhausen would be facing these guys holding the lead. Right now, he's just trying to hold the deficit.
But, John, I think one other thing about, you know, the trading, I think we're a long way from that, first of all. But secondly, there will be a stretch here where Oakland will play some of the lower division teams, and I think they will be able to help themselves.
Off the fist, foul.
They've had a pretty tough schedule, you know, facing some of the top teams, you know, in both divisions, you know, Boston, the Yankees, and Seattle, of course, when Seattle was at its hottest. So you have to realize, and that's what Oakland has to do. They have to think in terms of a long season. We've got to grind here. We've got to cut the lead to a certain number by the All-Star break. You can't say we're going to make it all up in the next 2 weeks because it's impossible.
2-2 to Everett, and Offerman back to the bag at first. Well, I like what Billy Beane, the Oakland general manager, said about it. He pointed out, said, hey, in early August last year, we were 7 games out. And we came back, won the division. I'd rather be
12 games out in early May, then 7 games out in early August. That's a good foul.
John, everything will be dependent on Tim Hudson, Barry Zito, Mark Mulder, and of course Gil Heredia. Those 4 pitchers are all capable of winning like 3 times out, 3 starts in a row. And you look up and you've won 12 games in a row, you've won 13 in a row, and you're right back in the race. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a good 3 starts from each one of those starters to get back in the race. And when that happens, they'll be okay.
And another foul. The battle continues between Carl Everett and Jason Isringhausen. Well, I don't remember. I mean, every year, if a team is a good team,
right,
they have more than one stretch where they go 15-3 or 20-5, or they get hot and they stay hot for a little while.
And I mean, if you're Seattle, you can't stay as hot as they've been the entire season. So there will be a bad stretch for Seattle as well. I mean, that's the way the game is. That's why they play 162 games.
They started the season in that kind of a stretch, as have the Minnesota Twins, which establishes them as good teams. I mean, you go out and get as hot as those teams have. I mean, Minnesota started the year 21-8. That's a good team.
Right.
Here's Barry Zito, the left-hander of the Athletics. This is his first full season in the big leagues, and he has not pitched back to the capability that he showed last year in a pennant race.
But he's a guy, John, that I've talked to, and I mean, my impressions of him is that, nothing phases him. I remember he was getting ready to pitch the 5th, 4th game against the Yankees last year. He has the right personality to be a star.
Everett again fouls one back.
Wow, what a duel this is. Everett and Isringhausen, the top closer of the Athletics, against the top hitter, not the top, but one of the top hitters in the Boston Red Sox, and an outstanding hitter.
And you see him going right after him inside because he doesn't want to go to 3-2 and allow Offerman to play hit and run with Everett.
This is the 9th pitch of this at-bat coming up. But Isringhausen first steps off the slab and will start over again. Remember, Manny Ramirez is on deck. This could escalate into something real serious in a hurry. And there's still concern, as you mentioned, about Offerman over there at first base.
He's not getting a big enough lead to steal it on his own, but if you go to 3-2, they'll probably run him.
Now he's linked it a little bit there, hasn't he? There he goes. No, he was bluffing. He took 2 quick steps. He's fooled me, Joe. He's gone, and that's it. That's my story. 2-2 as Offerman, Everett fouls off another one. Now, do you think he started and then thought better of it?
Well, he probably didn't think he had as good a jump as he wanted to get. Because you do not want to get thrown out and rob Manny Ramirez of a chance to hit here in this inning.
A fair ball. Giambi got him at second with how to cover it.
Nice play by Jason. We get the lead runner. 2 down, and Manny Ramirez coming up.
And speaking of Manny told us earlier that, what he tries to do is trust his hands, and that's what he does here in the first inning. Just watch how his body stays back, and he throws the barrel of the bat out, even though this pitch is inside. Watch this. See how he keeps his hands very quiet. He doesn't drop them and try to get them back up. Right there, he just throws the barrel of the bat there. You can see that barrel get through before anything else. Before his body moved or any other part of his anatomy moved, he was able to get his hands through. And that's where he says he trusts his hands, meaning he just stays back and lets his hands do the work.
Ramirez tonight 1 for 3 with a walk and a run scored. Hitting .405 for the year. Everett at first. Slider for a called strike at the knees. 5-3 Boston in the 9th.
Well, Isringhausen, has a good curveball, and I'm sure that, and you can see it's more like a knuckle curveball, and perfectly placed, knee high and away.
That's Everett over at first. He's the Red Sox leading base stealer, which doesn't say a whole lot because the Red Sox just don't steal very often. He's stolen 3 bases.
John, watch another thing with Ramirez. How relaxed he is in the batter's box. You know that Hank Aaron was always the most relaxed player I ever saw in the batter's box. It's like there's no tension there. And without any tension, that lets you use your hands. That lets you be very quick with the bat.
Runner going. And easily stolen. The throw goes into center field by Fasano. And Everett will go over to third base. So Everett gets his 4th steal of the year and gets an extra base as part of the package.
There's a high fastball up and in. Good pitch for Fasano to throw on. But his throw is offline.
And Aquino ended up having to try to stretch out right into the runner to go for that one.
So now runner at third base, and suddenly
it's an RBI opportunity for Manny Ramirez. And I mean, there's always an RBI opportunity for Ramirez. He's got great power, but now there's a man in scoring position. A base hit would get the RBI here.
Well, you see, Ismenhausen came back again with that knuckle curveball, and now they're going to walk him intentionally.
He's went to 3-1, so they'll give him the pass and start over again, even though the man on deck, O'Leary, is a left-handed hitter.
I was in Seattle last Wednesday, and Lou Piniella was managing against the Red Sox. In the game before I got there last Tuesday, he had an opportunity, he said, to walk Ramirez, but it was runners at first and third, and he didn't know if he wanted to do that. Ramirez drove in all 3 runs that day. He said, he just thought about it. He said he really wanted to walk him, even though there were 2 outs. And he would have been putting another runner in scoring position. But he said, with a guy like Ramirez up there, he can drive in like the runners from first or any place else anyway. And he said he thought about walking him, but he just didn't do it. And it turned out he probably should have. Because Ramirez drove in all 3 runs in that win.
Well, last Tuesday, when Pedro pitched against Seattle, Seattle had not lost to a right-handed starter this year. They were 16-0 in games started by right-handers, but Pedro beat him. And the only runs the Red Sox got were driven in by Manny Ramirez, and they won 2-0.
Well, he got a single and a double.
Here's Troy O'Leary now. He went deep back in the 5th inning. That was against Cory Lidle. And that capped a 5-run inning. That home run is right now the difference in this game. Tries the curveball, gets it over the outside. It's 0-1. O'Leary, that home run has been his only hit of the game. He's also had a walk. Everett at third, Ramirez at first. 5-3, the Red Sox lead. To second base, to Menachino. And Isringhausen gets through it. Now the last chance for the Athletics. It will be Menachino, then Jason Giambi. And Olmedo signs due up. Last chance in Oakland. To the last of the ninth, Sunday Night Baseball. The Red Sox 5, the Athletics 3. Next Sunday, we hope you'll join us at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. From Cincinnati, Deion Sanders back in Major League Baseball up against the Houston Astros from Cincinnati. All Sunday night telecasts are available on ESPN Radio and in Spanish on ESPN Deportes.
El partido de esta noche y todos los domingos pueden ser vistos a través de ESPN Deportes. Llame a su operador de cable local o DirecTV. Para más información, conéctese a espndeportes.com.
Well, John, I'd say it's good to have Deion back in baseball. I think he wears those pants up real high and shows all those socks because it makes him look faster.
Well, that's what he needs. He needs to look faster. Here's Frank Menachino against Rich Garces. Now, Garces still in there, but the Boston bullpen is busy. Jason Giambi on deck. And this is a key at bat, perhaps, for Oakland's comeback hopes. For Menachino to get on base in front of Giambi. That's Schurik, the left-hander, and Rod Beck, the right-hander. The Schurik has to be up because of the possibility of Giambi coming up with a chance to do damage. That is a slider too high, and it is 2-0 to Menachino.
Boston ahead 5-3. Jose Offerman, a 3-run homer in the 5th. And then Troy O'Leary, a 2-run homer later in the 5th. All of Boston's scoring and those 2 home runs in 1 inning. Strike called from Garces over the outside. And it is 2-1. Frank Menachino, Joe, was a 45th round pick by the Chicago White Sox when Ron Schuler was their GM. And that was 1 round after he had selected his own daughter. His own daughter. Which really was, I mean, she was a good, I guess, softball player. But here he is in the big leagues, and I'd have to say he beat some long odds to get here.
Yes, he did. Well, most small guys that play in the big leagues beat a lot of odds because they were not in demand.
Oh, name one other. Here's a swing, a bloop, shallow right center, in there, base hit. The 45th round draft choice gets it done. He is the first of Oakland's 2, 3, 4, 5 hitters to even reach base in this game tonight.
And Giambi looking over his shoulder to see if Jimmy Williams is going to bring the left-hander in. And Veritek's doing the same thing.
But they got the left-hander Schurik getting ready out there. I mean, Giambi's seen this number all through the year, but Jimmy Williams knows that Jason Giambi is 3 for 5 with a home run the few times he has faced Schurik.
Well, Schurik is not.
That's going to be a balk, doesn't it? There was no run at first base.
Well, but he threw it in the vicinity.
And now they have called it a ball.
See, sometimes they will not call that, and that's what Jimmy Williams is going to go out and argue. If you throw the ball near the bag, and that's why the third base umpire is going to come in and try to explain this, because if you throw the ball near the bag, sometimes they will not call that. But he's coming out to tell Jimmy you can't argue a ball. And that's what he's trying to stop him from coming out to do.
That's Larry Young, the crew chief. First base umpire Jim Wolf did not make an initial signal. I'm wondering, Joe, maybe it was home plate umpire Andy Fletcher or third base umpire Larry Young who made the call. He seemed to be following somebody else's lead.
Right. Well, the rule says if you throw it, you're supposed to throw to the bag. All right, he's at the bag. Now he backed away. And he threw it near the bag, but, I mean, that's not near enough, to be honest with you, so that's why they eventually called the ball.
So now a runner at second. Giambi facing the right-hander. Now against Garces, he's had 1 hit in 6 at-bats, but was 3 for 5 against Schurik. Now time is taken. Offerman goes to the mound, and here comes Kerrigan. And he gets a balk like that, Joe, and obviously it was kind of an absent-minded play. There was nobody covering first base.
Yeah.
It could rattle a guy a little bit.
Well, definitely it can rattle you, but first of all, he's rattled anyway because there's no reason to be even worried about the runner at first base. The tying run is at the plate. The runner at first base means nothing.
You see Beck, number 47, the right-hander. Schurik, the left-hander, in the Boston bullpen. So I guess, I mean, we've seen it a couple times now tonight. Jimmy Williams going by the numbers.
Right. Well, and I guess some managers do that, but most cases you're not going to have enough of a sampling to know whether, these are true statistics or not. I mean, the guy may have been in a hot streak when he got a couple of hits, or he may have been in a slump when he faced the guy and couldn't get a couple of hits. So it's kind of tough to do, but, a lot of managers are doing that. Otherwise, these printouts are just going to wastebasket.
Menachino at second. And he tries to backdoor him with the slider and misses. Well, this has been a nightmare the first month or so of this season for the Athletics. Now they're trying to work a little of that magic that they were able to do so often last year. There goes the runner. There's nobody covering third base, so Menachino easily makes it into third, and the count goes to 2-0 to Giambi, the possible tying run.
Well, what that really does now is just let Garcia say, okay, now I really only have to concentrate on Giambi, which is all he should have been doing in the first place.
The third baseman's over at shortstop. And that is ball 3. No steal, by the way, for Menachino because of the indifference of the Red Sox. Jimmy Williams talking to pitching coach Joe Kerrigan.
Swings away. A bloop along the left field line. That's going to go foul.
Well, I don't know about that. If you're going to swing 3-0, you've got to have a better swing than that. You've got to be trying to tie the ball game. You can't be trying to get a base hit. That's got to be 3-0. You've got to be taking a wall cut, as they say. That's a tough pitch for him to handle. And, I mean, that's not what you want to do, 3-0.
3-1 now. Strike 2 on the inside, and Giambi did not like the call.
Well, they've tried to pitch him inside, and
the last pitch, 3-0, was on the inside part of the plate, so he comes right back in there. He jammed him, so he comes back inside again. And you can see that Giambi thinks it's off the plate inside.
But it's where it is when it goes over the plate. I think that was awfully close. That is to first. Offerman's got it. He was hugging the line. And that is why he got the out. Coming in to score is Menachino. But they have erased the Athletics' greatest threat. And now Olmedo Saenz is coming up, and here comes Jimmy Williams. He's bringing in another right-hander for a right-hander, as he had done when he brought Garces in for the right-hander Arrojo. So now Shooter, a long-time closer for the San Francisco Giants, then for the Cubs, and closing tonight for Boston. 5-4. We'll be back. And Sunday Night Baseball now in our 12th year. The Red Sox trying to get 2 more outs here, leading 5-4 in the ninth. And right after the ball game, Sports Center, including the Sunday conversation with Pedro Martinez and all the other stories of the day in sports with Dan Patrick and Stuart Scott. And here is Rod Beck, a veteran closer who would like to be a closer again. But as he said earlier this year, Joey, about Derek Lowe in Boston, he doesn't want Lowe's job. He just wants a job like that. Derek Lowe was the closer. Lost that job, at least for a while. A lot of foul territory in this ballpark. And not quite. Offerman and Varitek gave chase. That's a ball, you know, at Fenway Park, that ball is back 10 rows into the seats. But in Oakland, there is a huge expanse of foul territory. So Olmedo Saenz still alive despite that.
Well, you can see them both chasing it and wanting to get there, but see Varitek runs out of room.
Dante Bichette and Tommy Harper there to make sure he didn't hurt himself. Olmedo Saenz 0 for 3 tonight against Pedro Martinez, who struck him out 3 times. Rod Beck 0-1 the count. To that inside and just missing. Now Beck has lost, I don't know, 25, 30 pounds or more. In much better shape than he had been in. And they say that it has added a few miles per hour to his fastball. He's also got an excellent split-fingered fastball. And a slider bounced foul back behind the plate. 1 ball and 2 strikes. And he certainly has the temperament to be a closer because he's done it for years.
Right.
Closing in on 300 saves if he could. I think he's 39 saves away from 300 if he could get a closing job back.
Well, and it takes a special personality to be a closer. I mean, it's not easy to go out there with the game in your hands every single night, every time you go out there.
Oh, that hit him. And Saenz, a fastball high and tight, and Saenz did not react very quickly to that one.
Right, he didn't react very quickly. If you watch, this ball is close to being over the plate. Watch how Saenz dives in. See him going in? So that ball is close to being over the plate. It's up now, but it's close to being over the plate.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it got him. It didn't appear in slow motion, but it did get him on the hand. Yeah, it got him on the hand. No, that ball's not far off the plate. It is up now. After looking at it again, I'm not sure either.
Draw that for me, will you? Show me right where that got him.
Yeah, I'm not sure again, but it appeared originally that it deflected into the glove.
That's Burns, Eric Burns, just recently called up in the minor leagues. The pinch runner for Saenz, representing the possible tying run. Still only 1 out. And Terrence Long, the hitter. 5-4 the score. And Burns back to the bag at first.
Pete Shurik, a left-hander ready in the bullpen, was not used to face Jason Giambi and is not being used to face Terrence Long here. Jimmy Williams has made 2 pitching changes in the last 2 innings, each time replacing a right-hander with a right-hander. That's a foul ball. Terrence Long 0 for 3 in the game. Rod Beck, who started his career in the Oakland Athletics organization, but it wasn't until he got to the San Francisco Giants that his career blossomed as a closer. He had a stretch in 1993 in that great pennant race between the Giants and Braves where he pitched almost every day in September. Going to get one at second. Now the relay back to first, not in time. Long has excellent speed. The bane of the athletic season, the double play ball, and the specter of that was raised again.
Well, the ball was not hit sharply, and a good job at shortstop by Lansing to make sure of one at second base. Make sure you get the lead runner, and that's what he did. He waited on the ball. Look, as you see, he's waiting for it. He didn't charge it. He wanted to make sure he got the big hop and made sure the runner at second base made sure he got one. And a good job there by Burns. I mean, he up-ends Steins at second base. But that was more of a make sure you get an out type of a ground ball, not a double play kind of a ground ball from Terrence Long.
Terrence Long has stolen 2 bases this year. He does run real well. The left-handed batting Jeremy Giambi now. The last hope for the Athletics, trailing 5-4 in the 9th inning. Beck looking him back. There's Long. He was the A's leadoff hitter last year, and he ended up having a very fine season for him. Red Sox trying to wrap up this road trip on a winning note and get a win for Pedro. Again, Beck looks at Beck. This time Long did not flinch, so Beck gave a more serious bluff. That time Long went back.
And John, I'm sure Pedro's up in the clubhouse wondering, because he's seen this before, where he's left the game, you know, with the lead 2 times this year, and they've ended up losing the ball game.
It's too low. Change at 1 ball, no strikes. Jimmy Williams, Red Sox manager, alongside Gene Lamont, the former Pirates manager, who's now his 3rd base coach. There's Long. Well, what do you think, Joe? I mean, he's the possible time run. The guy at the plate is not really a home run hitter.
I don't think the way the A's plays, they would risk being their last out of the ball game being thrown out of second base. So I don't anticipate him running.
That's a strike. 1-1.
Unless the count goes to 3 balls and 2 strikes or something like that, then he would have to run. But this is not the way the A's play baseball.
Jason Giambi 0 for 4 tonight, although he got an RBI here in the 9th inning. There is Long, the possible tying run, but he's at first base with 2 down. Giambi trying to move him around. And a splitter rolling outside. 2-1.
There are a lot of teams, not just the A's, who would not risk or do not want the final out for them to be at second base trying to steal a base. My personality is different, but I understand the way that they think. They just, they want to give the hitter a chance to drive him in.
Well, it's different between being a guy who could steal a base and being a guy who is a base stealer.
Right.
Another splitter, and it's 2-2.
And that's true. Well, this is a situation now where you may see him take off, because now if he's running and he hits a long single or a ball in the gap, he has an opportunity to score. And the Red Sox are playing very deep in the outfield. So a long single either in the right center or left center, and if he's running, would give him an opportunity to score.
2-2 the count. He's not running. Strike 3 called in the inside corner. And the Red Sox have won the game. And Rod Beck, like old times, gets the save for a team in look for a closer, in need of a closer. And Rod Beck gets it for Pedro Martinez, who wins his 4th game of the year. And the Red Sox take this series 2 games out of 3 and remain tied for first in the American League East.
Well, they had thrown him some splitters away, so what does he do? He comes with a fastball inside corner. Beautiful pitch, smart thinking. With all the splitters throwing him on the outside part of the plate, he was set up for that fastball in, and he got it.
And the celebration for Boston is Lamont, Jimmy Williams, the Joe Kerrigan, the Boston dugout brain trust, and the celebration on the infield begins now. The Red Sox are heading home on an up note. Pedro won the first game of this trip. Now he wins the final game of the trip. And the Red Sox are still there with the Blue Jays atop the East, a half game ahead of the Yankees. And for Oakland, still 12 back of Seattle. Sports Center coming up next. We'll see you next week from Cincinnati. John Miller and Joe Morgan. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com.